Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of our second annual statewide illegal dumping conference. I'm Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley. So before we go any further, let me turn it over to the interpreter to give instructions.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Gracia from International Contact, your language host for today. We have Spanish interpreters for this meeting. The Spanish participants will be listening to the interpretation on their corresponding channel. The interpretation channels have already been created. So please allow me one moment while I give the instruction in the language. Gracias por asistir a esta reunión. Para escuchar la presentación en español, por favor haga clic en la figura del mundito que aparece en la barra de tareas al final de su pantalla. Haga clic en Interpretación y seleccione ES Español o Spanish. De manera opcional, para escuchar solo el idioma interpretado, haga clic en Silenciar audio original. Si está usando un teléfono inteligente, por favor haga clic en los 3 puntitos que aparecen en la esquina superior de su pantalla y seleccione Interpretación Español. Más tarde habrá una parte de la reunión donde podrán hacer comentarios, así que simplemente escriban los comentarios en el chat o en la sección de Q&A. We ask all panelists to speak slowly so interpreters can keep up with you. And with this, I conclude the multilingual instructions. Thank you, and I will pass it to Supervisor Knight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So once again, welcome and good morning to everyone to our second annual statewide illegal dumping conference. We've had a very exciting and informative conference to date. And today is the enforcement day, and I'm looking forward to the enforcement day. So let's kind of just talk about what's happened since today. You know, on day 1, we had over 670 participants, and yesterday we had over 480 participants. And we've had hundreds of questions in the chat over the last 2 days. And the last 2 days dealt with education and eradication. Let me just talk a little bit about our sponsors, because we couldn't do the conference without our sponsors. Our title sponsor is WM, Waste Management. And we're really pleased to have Waste Management as our title sponsor. Waste Management is a solid waste collection service that operates in 48 states, as well as the District of Columbia, Canada, and Puerto Rico. Our education level sponsors: Mattress Recycling Council. MRC is a nonprofit organization that operates recycling programs for mattresses in states that enforce mattress recycling: California, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. You may know them as Bye Bye Mattress. Another education level sponsor, East Bay Municipal Utility District, whose mission is to manage the natural resources to provide reliable, high-quality water and wastewater services for the East Bay, and to preserve and protect the environment for the future generations. Eradication level sponsor is the Oro Loma Sanitary District, whose mission is to provide the highest value in wastewater, solid waste, and recycling services to customers and to protect the San Francisco Bay. Enforcement level sponsor, Georgia Lane Townhomes and Pepper Tree Village Apartments, i.e. Tom Silva. And then we've had a number of community level sponsors. Jefferson County Department of Public Works in Louisville, Kentucky. The IDTAC, that is the Illegal Dumping Technical Advisory Committee, part of Calorie. Forrester, California Product Stewardship Council, Furniture Cycle, the National Stewardship Action Council, Paint Care, Castro Valley Sanitary District, Product Stewardship Institute. Once again, let me say, we couldn't put on the conference without our sponsors. Many of our sponsors have had opportunities to either speak or be part of panels over the last 2 days. And we appreciate the work that our sponsors are doing in order to prevent and deal with illegal dumping, which knows no boundaries and clearly is preventable. I want to also ask everyone if you would take time to let us know where you are, where you're from. You can put that in the chat because we just want to get a sense of that. Because we've seen people in the conference who've joined us from other countries, Israel, Canada. We've seen people joining us from many states throughout the United States. So we just want to kind of get a sense of where people are from for the conference. And even though this is a statewide conference in California, we know illegal dumping knows no boundaries here in California, knows no boundaries throughout the state. And clearly it must not have boundaries in terms of the problems of illegal dumping worldwide. So let us know where you're from. A few housekeeping matters. In terms of the language preferences, choose the click interpretation for your language. Select mute original audio. You cannot listen to the language interpretation if you dial in. It's only available on Zoom. How to ask questions. Use the QA feature at the bottom of your Zoom window. Chat is available to discuss presentations with fellow participants. However, questions in chat may not be answered, so use the QA feature for all questions. What if you miss a presentation? Well, the recording of the conference will be made publicly, so you'll be able to get a copy of, or at least be able to tune into the recording of the conference. Links will be sent to all conference participants. Join the conversation on social media. You can find it on my platform on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Use the hashtag IDCon22. That's ID stands for illegal dumping, CON stands for conference, 22 stands for this year, to keep the conversations connected on the conference. Then finally, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, please email Aaron Armstrong at acgov.org. That's aaron.armstrong@acgov.org, or call my office at 510-272-6694, 510-272-6694. I also want to thank Aaron Armstrong and Jasmine Howard for helping to make the conference happen. Both of them were on my staff, and they had support from some of my other staff, Austin Bruckner, my executive assistant, Tona Henninger, my chief of staff, and Ashley Strasberg, who's also on my staff. All have worked on this conference. And I want to thank the Information Technology Department for helping us pull the conference together as well as thanking anyone else, because I know we've had a number of meetings to prepare for the conference with the Illegal Dumping Statewide Task Force to help provide input on the conference. Now, just to kind of recap the prior days. So on the first day was the Education Day. We had a great keynote opening by Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan. We talked about the threes. Aaron went over that extremely well: enforcement, eradication, and education, all of which we need. We talked about the impact of illegal dumping. We actually went on the streets live to see some illegal dumping, what's happening. The Illegal Dumping Technical Advisory Committee gave a presentation. We've heard from LA County on our spot. Then we also learned about the proper disposal of propane cylinders. Then there was an exciting panel put on by the Mattress Recycling Council. And then we closed out day one, the education day, with closing remarks from Alameda County Sheriff Greg Ahern. On day two, Talia Weiss from WM, the Director of Communications, gave us opening remarks. Then there was an entire legislative block, and we heard from the Product Stewardship Council, the Product Stewardship Institute, and the Product Stewardship Action Council. All of them spoke. We also heard from Paint Care. Then we had LA talk to us once again about their use of technology, smartphones. And then we heard from Caltrans. Caltrans talked about their Clean California initiative. And during the day, we also had an exciting panel, very exciting panel, talked about the cost of illegal dumping. That was an extremely informative and exciting panel. So now today, enforcement. You know, illegal dumping is a crime against our communities. Enforcement is key to addressing illegal dumping, because without enforcement, we're just providing a free garbage service. We need to take action to curb people's bad behaviors. Without enforcement, the activity of illegal dumping will just continue to proliferate and bring down the quality of life in all of our communities. And illegal dumping, it happens in rural communities, suburban communities, as well as urban communities. So we need enforcement. It's an important component of our efforts to address illegal dumping. So today, we're going to start off with Mary Jo Maguire. I'll give you her information in a minute, but we'll also have presentations on strategies. We'll also hear from the Attorney General. He'll be our closing speaker today, so stick around for him. We'll also have a great panel that will talk about enforcement efforts on illegal dumping, code enforcers, city attorneys, district attorneys, as well as CHP. We'll hear from Louisville, Kentucky on how they go about dealing with illegal dumping. And then we'll look at franchise agreements and what can be done to try to address illegal dumping through franchise agreements, what maybe some of the best practices are there. So stick around. Today's going to be a very exciting day, a very informative day. And like I said, I'm just really looking forward to today's presentation, today's conference. So let me now go to Mary Jo Maguire. Mary Jo Maguire is the Vice President of the National Association of Counties. Commissioner, and they call, in some places, county supervisors commissioner. So Commissioner Maguire has been a Ramsey County Commissioner in Minnesota since 2012 and served 16 years in the Minnesota State Legislature, serving in both the House and Senate. Commissioner Maguire is a member of NACO's executive board and serves on its Financial Services Corporation and the Audit and Finance Committees. She also serves on NACO's Health Policy Steering Committee, Healthy Counties Advisory Board, and Program and Services Committee, and the Arts and Culture Commission. We're really pleased to have her speaking to us today as the Vice President of the National Association of Counties. One of my staff, Claudia Albano, knows Mary Jo really well and was able to help us secure Mary Jo's participation in our conference this year. So Mary Jo, I'd like to turn it over to you for remarks. So thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Supervisor Miley. I really appreciate that nice introduction. You're right, we're called commissioners here. And as I tell people, as I made the move from state government to county government that I've come to the highest level of government, because this is really where we get the work done, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I do come from a county that includes the city of St. Paul and 17 suburban cities, and happy to join you here today in my NACO role as the National Associations of County incoming president in a year and a half. That's where I'll be. And I'm glad you mentioned Claudia Albano, my good friend and grad school colleague, who invited me here, and just grateful to be here. And Supervisor Miley, just thank you so much for your leadership in putting on this conference. This is an amazing conference. I want to bring it to my state of Minnesota as well, and we want to bring it to the country, the work that you're doing here. And I know it's work that we all are passionate about and share. And so we want to really work with you on that. I'm happy to start out day 3 of your conference, just a little bit about who NACO is, and then our work together in addressing the issue of illegal dumping. And with that, I'm going to share my screen here. And there we go. There. Do you have are you seeing the screen? Okay. NACO is the National Association of Counties, and we have a mission to strengthen America's counties. We make sure that the county voice is heard and respected in federal policymaking. We serve over 2,500 counties, nearly 40,000 county elected officials, and 3.6 million county employees in the country. We work together to advocate for county priorities, promote best practices, and optimize county resources to bring about the vision of healthy, safe, and vibrant counties across America. NACO is an essential resource to help bring together different perspectives to address issues that matter to us all, from the public health pandemic response to illegal dumping, to water quality, and more. Every day, we educate decision makers in Washington, D.C. about our key role in the lives of our residents. Representing NACO here today, I want to underline, and as Supervisor Miley said, this is not just a California issue. Illegal dumping happens everywhere. It's nationwide. Urban, suburban, and rural communities are all impacted. We all experience significant environmental and financial costs from illegal dumping. Yes, as Supervisor Miley said, illegal dumping knows no bounds, and we all have a role to play. And if we work on this together, and that is what NACO wants to do, we can be heard and change can happen. Just a few things about what NACO's philosophy is. Of course, we have the philosophy of our members. We support a waste management system that allows counties to select among a variety of options to protect the environment, cost effectively meet local needs, and avoid undue financial hardship on counties. But we do understand that this system doesn't always work as we would like it to, and illegal dumping happens. So one approach that you've heard about in your previous days on the conference has been what NACO's been doing is advocating for the extended producer responsibility, or EPR framework, which creates the effective producer-led reduction, reuse, and recycling programs. This system addresses a product's life cycle impacts from design through end-of-life management without relying solely on state and local governments. NACO members took action by adding EPR to our platform, and I'm fortunate in my county to serve on the board with Victoria Reinhardt, who leads the charge in the country on this. She actually authored that platform issue to NACO and lobbies Congress on this issue. We also have one of our resolutions is to specifically address illegal dumping along the border. We urged Congress to support binational projects between private, state, federal, tribal, and public organizations, which develop and implement programs to educate, prevent, and clean up illegal dumping along the US-Mexican border. Without NACO, a single county might advocate for this, but they are one voice on a massive issue. With NACO, this effort is backed up by the strong collective voice of over 2,500 counties. That's why it's so important that we all come together here collectively to address the issue, and why I'm so glad that you invited me to be here with you today. It is an issue that we all can work on together. I love your 3 E's of education, eradication, and enforcement. And I'm just want to thank you all for your work in this. I look forward to hearing from today's speakers and learning. Thank you, Supervisor Miley. Thank you on the statewide illegal dumping task force. I really, and all of your team, Supervisor Miley, for including me in this discussion. And I look forward to, as I said, further communications, and I'll send it over to you. So thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Mary Jo. So if you have a few moments, just want to chat with you briefly.
Sure.
So, yeah. What's your opinion of the E, the enforcement E? What do you think about that?
Well, I appreciate the question, and I agree with what you said previously, that this, if we do all of these, if we put all of these processes in place and pass all these laws, if we don't enforce them, it's just picking up people's garbage for free, which I like the way you describe that, because it is crucial that people take us seriously, that they know that there's going to be consequences for their behavior, and that we really enforce it. So it has to be part of the process.
Yeah, there needs to be accountability, and the accountability needs to be measured depending on the type and nature
Absolutely.
of what's been dumped. I mean, if you're a big company and you've dumped products, and maybe you should be fined and there might be jail time, but if you're a small individual, maybe the consequences might be you have to get out and pick up some legally dumped trash and garbage.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because I think some people are just afraid of that E for enforcement. And I know Assembly Member Rebecca Bauer-Cahan, she's pushing legislation that would increase fines and penalties for illegal dumping. But it's a real challenge.
Well, I agree, and I'm a huge proponent of obviously having the offender, have the consequences, having the offender pay. Why we shouldn't all have to pay for what individuals and businesses do. They should really be responsible for it themselves, and our taxpayers have enough burdens on them, and so we really need to hold those people directly accountable for that.
And when the sheriff for Alameda County spoke on the first day, he actually talked about how, his deputies, they go out, they knock on doors, they talk to people, and in trying to deal with illegal dumping, they've actually brought hope back to communities that have been so impacted and inundated with illegal dumping, not just for a year or two, but for years.
Oh, that is great. That is great work. Yeah, because you're right. I think you've said it really clearly. It brings hope when people see that there's something being done about it. Then they're more inclined to also, pay attention themselves, and they will be more conscious of their community and how it looks. And so I'm really glad that you had that speaker to bring that forward.
Mm-hmm. And then one last question. Our panel on the cost of illegal dumping, sometimes people just think of the cost as being financial, and the cost is, like you said, the taxpayers have to pick this up and it's very expensive, but there are other costs to all of us as well. Environmental justice costs, quality of life costs, mental anguish. There's just so many costs associated with illegal dumping.
Absolutely. People want to be proud of their communities, and they want it to look good. And we all know the broken windows, when someone throws something and then more people throw it, then people, aren't as inclined to take care of their community. But if we all take responsibility for it and we all take care of it, then it will be better for everyone. So I think it's imperative that we all take responsibility for this.
All right, so I just really appreciate the fact that you spoke with us today. We have over about 250 people on presently, and the thing is, anything that can be done through NACO around the 3 E's, education, eradication, enforcement, is definitely welcomed and appreciated.
Well, I really appreciate this. Yes, I absolutely want to bring this whole conference to NACO. You have some great NACO members in your own county with Keith Carson, and you have some great members within your state of Minnesota, state of California and Minnesota, but state of California. But we will definitely. I'm going to be recommending that this effort of your conference really get more highlighted at NACO. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, yes, and thanks for highlighting extended producer responsibility. That is definitely a strategy that we all need to embrace. So thank you, and have a pleasant day and a pleasant weekend.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and keep up your good work, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do now is turn it over to Aaron Armstrong. Aaron will kind of take us through the rest of the day, and then I'll be back at the conclusion of today's conference.
Thank you, Supervisor and Commissioner, for those excellent remarks and for bringing us into the day today. As the Supervisor mentioned, today is Enforcement Day, and we are starting off today with a very exciting panel all about enforcement. Now, when people think about enforcement, they may just think about law enforcement and police officers and flashing red and blue lights. But when it comes to illegal dumping, there are so many perspectives on enforcement. And so that's what this panel is all about. It's about perspectives on enforcement. And we've brought together a diverse group, Jamaica Moon from Code Enforcement in Oakland, Mara Christian from Code Enforcement in San Bernardino, Dylan Brady, who's the Deputy City Attorney in Vallejo, Benjamin Scheiser, who's a CHP officer, and Gonzalo Barriga, who's an environmental compliance officer for the city of Los Angeles. All of them are coming together today to offer their different perspectives on law enforcement. And as our moderator, the fabulous Kibby Day, will be joining us. And Kibby is the Deputy District Attorney in the San Joaquin County District Attorney's Office. She received her undergraduate and law degree from UC Davis. Kibby joined the San Joaquin DA's office in 2005 and prosecuted domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual assault, human trafficking, and homicide cases until joining their environmental protection unit 2 years ago. Kibby is a member of the IDTAC Enforcement Subcommittee, and we learned all about IDTAC a little bit earlier in the conference, and is a member of the Alameda County Illegal Dumping Task Force, which I lead every month. Kibby, it's so great to have you here and to share these diverse perspectives on law enforcement. You have until 11:10, and then I will jump back in and take us through a break. So over to you.
I think you meant 10:10. But if you just gave me an extra hour, I'll take it, Aaron.
I did actually mean 10:10.
Darn it.
I know that you could take that extra hour and we would not miss any of that content. But yeah, you're right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aaron. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kibby Day, as Aaron said. And what I wanted to do is first spend a few minutes really introducing the panelists that we have, because each panelist is going to share their unique expertise on illegal dumping enforcement, followed by a little bit of general Q&A. But, I think Aaron really introduced this well, and consider this question throughout this presentation. How could we improve enforcement beyond just police patrol work and the traditional police DA pipeline with some funding and ingenuity? And I think you're going to see some of it here today. First panelist, Mara Christian, has spent 34 years working in a multitude of capacities, from code enforcement to also being a firefighter paramedic. He's currently the division manager over code enforcement unit for the city of San Bernardino. Before that, he worked 24 years as a supervising code enforcement officer for the county of Riverside, leading dozens of diverse teams, including a special enforcement team for illegal dumping. Ben Scheiser with the California Highway Patrol, he's been with them since 2007. He served patrol assignments in San Jose, Stockton, and Castro Valley, but since 2019, Officer Scheiser has been assigned to Golden Gate Division's Commercial Operation Unit and is the environmental crimes investigator for the southern sector of the division. Officer Schieser is a Cal OES outreach instructor and the interim regional director for the San Francisco Bay Area for the California Hazardous Materials Investigation Association. Gonzalo Barriga has over 20 years of experience in public health and environmental protection, working for Los Angeles County Public Health and Los Angeles Sanitation and Environment. Currently, he's the Assistant Chief Environmental Compliance Officer for the City of Los Angeles. He's very, very active in developing and implementing environmental enforcement and emergency response policies and procedures pertaining to crimes such as illegal dumping. Dylan Brady joins us after graduating from McGeorge in 2014, worked for 4 years as a neighborhood law attorney and deputy city attorney for the city of Vallejo. While there, he started Vallejo's illegal dumping enforcement program. He's even done some of the illegal dumping cases into trial. And since 2021, he has been the assistant city attorney for the city of Petaluma. Finally, but last but certainly not least, Jamaica Moon joins us from the city of Oakland. She's been there for over 8 years, started her career in 2013 at the Keep Oakland Clean and Beautiful Division as a street sweeper operator. But in February of 2019, she promoted to environmental enforcement officer. And in July of 2019, she promoted again to the clean community supervisor. And prior to her tenure with the city of Oakland, she spent 12 years in various positions with Caltrans. So I want to thank everyone for joining us here. I'm going to ask, let's see, I just got to get switched over here. Mark Christian, if you would kind of speak with us first. And if you could give us a thumbnail sketch of how your special enforcement team that focused on illegal dumping was built.
Certainly. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the invitation to participate with this. This is encouraging to see a statewide effort moving towards the problem that every community faces of illegal dumping. As Kibby mentioned, 24 years with the County of Riverside, and from 2006 to about 2012, I supervised and grew out our special enforcement team, which really focused on illegal dumping throughout the unincorporated areas of Riverside County, which encompasses 7,200 square miles. That team originally started off as 4 officers, and then they added a supervising component because of the growth and the demand calls for service. What was important in the success of this team, growing over a 3-year period from 5 of us to a staff of more than 20, with a division manager, a dispatch center, senior officers, supervising officers, division and resources from East and West End operations. The 2 key important factors that come with that much momentum are the political will. We had the support from the Board of Supervisors, who then rallied support from state legislators. And then we invested in in personal capital. When we started to recruit staff for this team, they were code enforcement officers first, but then through a competitive recruitment grew into illegal dumping enforcement officers. All of the staff on the team were sent through HAZWOPER training. All have had PC 832. They were provided enhanced training for arrest and control techniques that went a little bit beyond PC 832. But through the training, we were able to really commit time and resources to combat the problems that come with illegal dumping. And any quantity from your infraction single household bag of trash to misdemeanor volumes or commercial size, anything bigger than a washing machine is basically 1 cubic yard. We even were able to, because of our HAZWOPER training and our vertical prosecution relationship with the local DA's office, we were able to successfully file and receive favorable prosecutions in felonies for the dumping of 1 car battery that cracked and discharged onto the ground. The other component that comes with that, as I mentioned, not only the political capital, but the financial capital, investing in what was contemporary technology at the time with game cameras or surveillance cameras that were static deployed, required staff to go out there, deploy them covertly, and then retrieve them covertly as well, come back. And more times than not, because at the time the cameras were not very sophisticated, what that resource provided was it drove surveillance opportunities and enforcement efforts in very specific areas. So we're able to work a little bit smarter and not harder. Anybody can deploy a team at 2 o'clock in the morning and eat up time and money through overtime or flex time and may not realize much success with that. But through the use of technology, building the relationships vertically and on the oblique outside of code enforcement with local law enforcement, the county sheriff go into their patrol briefings, local PDs go into their patrol briefings, with environmental health, with the local Coupa or the hazmat team. It's through those relationships and building that trust that we were really able to achieve success. Success looked like over 3,000 cases that were filed with Riverside County DA's office or direct filing through infractions with the courts. We did not lose one case. They may have been pled out in the hallway, and that's fine, but we did not lose a case. It was because of the quality, the time investment in the political capital with staff and the relationships, and the desire politically, not only from the electeds on the board, but the electeds at the DA's office. We went through 3 iterations of DA while I was supervisor. Each one of them was committed to illegal dumping. So that's kind of how Riverside County built up their program. Due to physical constraints after the economy kind of fell out from underneath everyone, the team was disbanded and sent back to more conventional responsibilities at the district level. But a few of us continue to tackle those illegal dumping cases and continue to file cases as recently as last year with the DA's office, again, seeking favorable results. So that's how Riverside County does it.
Thank you so much, Mar. I think that you brought up a bunch of really, really important points. And one of the things you talked about was relationships and special relationships with multiple agencies. And Ben, I was wondering if you would be willing to come on and we can talk a little bit about relationships, because I understand CHP has done some one-day enforcement operations that can be publicized later and get the message out. And could you explain kind of what those look like and how that kind of plays into having multi-agency relationships?
Yeah, good morning. So I'll give kind of a brief history of how it began. So in Golden Gate Division in 2020, we began conducting what we refer to as litter enforcement in the division in conjunction with Caltrans on the second Wednesday of each month. The reason why the second Wednesday of each month was chosen was to bring more attention to the detail. Not just the enforcement side of it, but Caltrans would also be doing litter cleanups on the major corridors in the counties in which we worked. So the detail consisted of 11 officers and a sergeant assigned to roving patrol to target certain violations regarding illegal dumping, spilling of loads, and other transportation violations. In addition, we would utilize 2 officers from each of the commercial vehicle enforcement facilities or scales in the Bay Area, which we have 3, to target enforcement of illegal littering or dumping. You're muted.
Did you ever invite out other agencies to be a part of these enforcement days, things of that nature?
We didn't invite per se, but we would work with other agencies who were investigating cases of illegal dumping. One of the last details we had, we work with other agencies during other commercial enforcement details. We were able to locate the suspect of a commercial quantity dirt dumping in Alameda County, who was seen by a county worker on a local county road. That led to the filing of charges against him and his company.
Wonderful, thank you. One of our plans was to talk a little bit about what to be able to do with abandoned autos, but in light of some time constraints today, what I will do is provide handout materials to all participants to give some information that comes from the CHP about what to do about abandoned vehicles. Ben, we thank you very, very much for those answers. And I want to turn over to Dylan Brady and ask Dylan if you can give a little bit of advice about best practices and lessons learned from your experience starting an illegal dumping enforcement program. And that is, my understanding, is cameras and temporary road closures.
Yeah, so it's really in Vallejo, it was an interdepartmental really program between Public Works, IT staff for the camera. Vallejo, we have the political capital to hire a whole code officer whose sole purpose was to go out, use the cameras, inspect illegal dumpings. So we had to figure out, what we currently have, what we need to do. So that included, a new code officer, buying cameras, figuring out with IT and the code enforcement, what would be the best cameras. And then when we rolled out the program, we had education campaigns to let people know, hey, we have this new code officer who will be investigating cases. He'll be writing reports for the city attorney's office to file criminal cases. So it was really a big education push out to inform the community, hey, the city attorney's office is going to be filing these cases, and to provide information to the code officer. So that was a huge thing I would recommend, is figuring out what your resources are and what you need to do to be successful. And then in regards to the road closures, it's a provision in the vehicle code, section 21101.4, allows portions, if not all of the road, to be closed that's involved with illegal dumping or other serious crimes. There needs to be a nexus between the crime and vehicles that are driving on the road. And the road closures can impact traffic or emergency vehicles. So we found 3 or 4 hotspots in Vallejo that were because of these roads that really didn't have eyes on them. We did have cameras on them, so that was helpful, but they were parts that, like a roundabout to nowhere, or subdivision roads that were created, but the subdivision didn't get, or it wasn't in the process of developing. So we put K-rail, or the city council passed a resolution. Then we put K-rails and chains between the K-rails to make sure that nobody could access these roads and portions of the roads. And then it was such a successful campaign, we were able to move those cameras to other hotspot locations because the K-rails and road closures were doing its job.
That's incredible. Can you tell me briefly, did you use cameras that had license plate readers on them that automated, or did you do something different?
So we do have that capabilities, as well as our code officer is able to take remote control of the cameras, watch at a station. He's able to zoom in. He says sometimes when he's bored Friday night, he'll be able to watch the cameras and zoom in. So it was really great. I think Vallejo has about 6 or 7 cameras, and they were able to be quickly installed from Public Works. So we're constantly moving them around to different hotspot locations. And it sounds like what was helpful too is just going out there and the community being able to see the neighborhood that, hey, these cameras are being installed, they're taken down. So the cameras have been really helpful as well.
Thank you so much. I saw a quick question about the vehicle code section. In California, it's 21101.4. Is that right, Dylan?
That's correct. And if anybody needs help with drafting that resolution or the staff report, please let me know. Happy to provide that, or talk to Vallejo, my former colleagues, and get that. But what was helpful with that resolution is we would have declarations from our traffic engineer, our fire code enforcement, our police department, our fire prevention that says, oh, these roads aren't able, or they won't interfere with traffic or emergency services.
Very, very good. Thanks so much, Dylan. I appreciate it very much. I see a lot of questions coming in. We will all hang around at the Q&A after this presentation and spend the time needed to be able to answer all of your questions that do come up. Right now, I want to go over to Gonzalo Barriga. Good morning, Gonzo. How are you?
Good morning, Kibby. Doing good
Hey,
yourself?
Good, thank you. Can you explain a little bit about your position and in LA and your use of cameras?
Sure, thank you. So we're similar to what Christian Marr has explained for his agency. So we began the process in 2012. Basically, we're deputized inspectors that have, well, one PC 836.5, that's public officer arrest authority. That's to cite and arrest for municipal code violations. And then we're also illegal dumping enforcement officers pursuant to Penal Code Section 830.7. That basically gives us peace officer arrest authority to do illegal dumping enforcement. So what does that mean? That means our staff have the ability to write a notice to comply, notice of violation. That's one tool. Another tool is they have the ability to write a notice to appear for an infraction or a misdemeanor. That goes to a criminal court. And our infractions go to similar to its traffic court, right, for fines. We can also do misdemeanor complaint referral reports and felony complaint referral reports to any prosecutor, that'd be the city attorney, DA, AG, U.S. Attorney's Office. Also, our staff, because of the background with water protection and pollution, we also are certified through the Office of Emergency Services as hazardous materials technician specialists. What does that mean? We can respond to the to a incident, and we can work with all public safety staff to identify unknown materials, also suit up and select the appropriate personal protective equipment, and maintain a hot, cold, and warm zone so that we can respond to that hazmat incident. These are very useful tools. If you go 20 years back, these were a lot of these things were not available to our staff. Again, we began the process in 2012, and it all got codified when we basically did our memorandum of agreement with LAPD so that we can act on their behalf to perform environmental crimes. Also, that's a requirement of PC 830.7. Some lessons learned from well, some of the cameras that we use. The cameras that we use in the city are Leverage, CSIS, and Crime Point. We began looking at ways to how to optimize our staffing and our ability and tools in the field. And one of those things was a pilot to begin in the use of cameras and how they could be useful to our enforcement staff on the field. And that began around 2015. It began with 3 cameras. We're now at approximately 30 cameras, again, from those 3 vendors.
How many of the 30 are working at a time, Gonzalo? I mean, speaking of lessons learned and some of the difficulties of cameras.
Very good question. So we've been at it for 6-7 years. Year and a half, 2 of those years was with COVID. But some of the things that you need to consider is where you're working at. For instance, I'm in the city of LA. We have council districts. What council district are you in? What are their expectations? What are their asks? What are the community asks? One of the things I like to bring up is cameras, deterrent or for enforcement. That's a good question to begin the conversation. So, I mean, if you're using it as a deterrent, you could probably build a replica dummy camera with some signage for about $80 to $100 and put that up. Those cameras can also be used to kind of push, if you're doing enforcement, push those potential violators to an area where you're surveilling, where your active cameras are up. Can your cameras be moved around? Are they durable? Location from one location to the next. We were very adamant that is a necessity for the camera because after 3 to 6 months, we want to redeploy it to the next hotspot. That way, We don't draw too much attention to our asset in the field, which can, draw negative attention, basically people trying to shoot at it or trying to destroy it or steal it, etc. Funding is a huge thing that you need to consider with cameras also. Do you have the O&M? Do you have a 5-year plan for these cameras? How long are they going to last you? Are the hard drives going to go out? One of the biggest things that I think is important is try the user interface for the camera. Is it easy to operate the camera and download the information you need from that camera? Again, O&M. So you're going to have to think about funding. It's not a one-time purchase. You're going to have to consider, what you need. Part of the funding is staffing. You could have 100 cameras up, but if you have nobody to do the O&M, and for me, no one to go out there and pursue those cases, those clips of people dumping, run the plates, go do the knock and talks, interview the suspects, write the tickets, write the complaint reports. Basically, they're just dummy cameras if you don't have that staffing. So that's important. Let's see here. Where to deploy the cameras? You're going to want to identify those hot spots, those illegal dumping areas, one with data. So for us, we get 311 calls, information's coming in, constantly being fed out. We also reach out to our council offices, ask what they're getting, where they're getting complaints at, and also to the senior lead officers of the area from LAPD or the community. Talk to the community where those issues are going on.
One of the things, Gonzalo, that I've put up on the screen that I hope people can see is, yes, license plates are a big deal. We want license plates, right, Dylan? From our cases, but that tells us the car. It doesn't tell us the dumper. And that is a major, major issue to enforcement for us. If we could prosecute cars all day long, we'd be very successful at what we do, right? But getting, actually identifying the individual that is operating that car and doing the dumping is very, very difficult. So, one of the things to think about with cameras that we've all talked about together is, if you get a camera, should it have an automated license plate reader? And instead of all of you sitting up as close to this screen as possible and reading, all of this information, this is your warning. And the idea is that there are laws that go into place and some civil codes that come into place if you want a camera that is fancy enough to do license plate readers. I remember Dylan mentioning, well, our cameras, some of them were high definition enough, we could just zoom in and see, versus that automatically read license plates. But license plates don't identify our dumpers, and there most definitely has to be follow-up done from that. Again, we will be happy to share this slide and any information that we have. Gonzalo, I appreciate your answers very, very much, and want to turn over to Jamaica briefly to say good morning, Jamaica. And can you tell us a little bit about your experience building your team in Oakland? Because I think it really highlights the idea of different enforcement options. Not every way of enforcement is necessarily going to be a misdemeanor, a felony, criminal. There are informal options. There are administrative options. There are civil options. Funding and ingenuity, this is what we're talking about. Share with us how you're building your team.
Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to sit here and speak with these awesome folks on this panel. I've had the pleasure to work with them over the past few years, and it's awesome. But our now Environmental Enforcement Unit, formerly known as the Litter Enforcement Officers, back in 2001, it consisted of 8 officers back then, and and 2 supervisors, 1 public works supervisor. It was housing, public works, but due to budget cuts, it was a cut, which was one of the biggest mistakes, I believe, looking in the future, right, that the city of Oakland could have made around illegal dumping. As Kippy kind of mentioned when she introduced me early on, I started off as one of the first 4 environmental enforcement officers that were hired on to do the task. And once we were hired on, there was an opportunity right there for me for the clean community supervisor. And with my background from Caltrans and working with the city here, and my experience with illegal dumping and homeless and the community, and it was right down my alley. And so I jumped in and took full force. And when I came in, it was like we were trying to figure out everything out, because after they got rid of the litter enforcement officers, they brought back some type of a surveillance program that was housed in our city administrator's office. And they, there was a little system that went on through Oak 311, like Gonzalo mentioned. If a complaint came in, there was somebody who saw it, it would go through the city administrator. But then there was this whole long thing that it had to go through in order for it to be brought in front of a court, right? And so now that it's housed in OPW here with us, I was tasked with having to come up with a pretty simple system for the city of Oakland that can be sustainable in enforcement, housed out of Oakland Public Works, with very, very little support from law enforcement. If you listen to some of my other panelists, a lot of them have they're part of law enforcement, right? So that's a key part to kind of pushing some of these things through. And I was listening to Dylan Brady talk about Vallejo, and a lot of similar things started ticking off in my mind, because we had to do the work, partner with the city attorney's office. We partnered with environmental services. We created our own administrative citation ticket. I have a picture of it right here, right? So my idea for the city of Oakland was to have a very simple process, similar to like if you drove into Oakland and got a parking ticket. I want people to know, if you come to Oakland, you may get a illegal dumping ticket. And so out of about the 1,500 citations that we issued, I think the city of Oakland is starting to get the picture. So once the environmental enforcement team came on board, we created our administrative citation process. We had to do a lot of deep digging and reading through our Oakland municipal codes to see how we can legally build a system of this sort, right? With very minimal, not support, but just very minimal resources with our law enforcement partners, right? And so we successfully created an administrative citation ticket and a civil penalty ticket for those more egregious cases. And just to give you an example, we can issue citations for under 8.11 in our Oakland Municipal Code, as well as 8.28. 8.11 covers illegal dumping. This like basic illegal dumping is unlawful. Is unlawful. I wanted to speak a little bit to our 8.11 540. I'm sorry, 8.11 530, which is liability of vehicle / trailer owner of operated or used vehicle in dumping. So what we've been able to figure out here in the city of Oakland, that we can utilize our Oakland Municipal Code and issue a citation to the registered owner, regardless if they are the dumper or not. So that was a key in enforcement when dealing with the surveillance program that is now housed in OPW with my team, the environmental enforcement officer. So we are now able to issue administrative citations, civil penalties, as well as have a robust surveillance program that is now being piloted, but it has been pretty successful so far to be able to get in control of these hotspots, right? So we use our CityWorks data to narrow down the top hotspots in the city of Oakland through work orders and service requests, because there's two things going on there. We got work orders, that's how many times our guys have went out to that location, and then we have the service requests that actually are coming in from the public. So we kind of compared both of those lists. We did some field work intel just so we can codify the list and ensure these are true hotspots. And that's how we decided where we're going to start to hang our cameras. The city of Oakland now has 10 cameras operating right now in 10 of our top hotspots. Since we've hung the cameras, we've probably caught about total out of the whole 10 cameras, probably 31 dumping incidents. Out of that 31 dumping incidents, we are uncovering, out of these different hotspot locations, we are uncovering if it is truly a hotspot or is there something else going on here, right? So in the city of Oakland, we have all kinds of issues going on around illegal dumping. One of the biggest ones being, homeless debris, right? And so a lot of the times we have our bad actors abusing these homeless encampment areas as dump locations, right? So we're not ixing it out if it's near a homeless encampment, because we know bad actors try to dump near homeless encampments because they know it's going to be cleaned up anyway. So what we've been uncovering in some of our surveillance is some of these hot spots that we considered illegal dumping hotspots, we're finding that they're actually homeless debris, because we're watching the homeless individuals come from the corner and dump it, right? So in our data, and we're keeping track of every instance so that we can capture each one of these dumping incidents, right? And so the cameras that we're using are through a company called Security Lines. We've tried other cameras in the past, like Verkada. I don't know if anybody's heard of Verkada, which was a great system and everything, but it just wasn't as mobile as we needed. Similar to what Dylan was speaking to, we're starting with a top 100 hotspot list. That's how long our list goes on and on. And these are the hottest spots. And so we have to have a system where we're moving these cameras. If we realize one of these areas is not a hotspot, or it's just a homeless garbage drop-off area, or maybe this is an adopted spot pickup location and it's not illegal dumping, we're moving that camera, right? So we're going to narrow it down to our real true hotspots, and through our surveillance and our administrative citations, because if we catch somebody dumping on camera, we are issuing the vehicle owner. We partner with our city attorney's office to get the license plate information. We do not have license plate readers on our cameras. The reason we do not have license plate readers, we tried it with Verkada, but it was really hard when dealing with privacy concerns in the city of Oakland, and we didn't want any of the red tape, right? So we wanted to be able to have a system that we can move through Oakland safely with nobody's privacy concerns in mind, just in case we have to hang them by a homeless encampment, just in case we have to hang them over someone's yard, right? We want to make sure there's no constraints. So we did a robust meeting with our privacy commission and went through the whole process to ensure that they are okay and approved with the way that we're doing business. So we took very much care at the way we moved forward when deciding to choose this camera vendor. And their cameras are awesome. There's a little bit of things that we're technical things that we're having to figure out, like certain areas may not have the best Wi-Fi, so we might have to put a cell booster there. And in certain areas, because we don't have the license plate reader, we might have to figure out a better way to zoom closer in to capture a better plate. It's a little more technical, but it's definitely worth the mobility of being able to move each one of those cameras across the city as we need. And so I kind of veered more close to talk about surveillance, because I can go all into the 3 E's all day, because that's what the Environmental Enforcement Unit does all day, every day. We educate, we enforce, and we partner to get it eradicated, and not just with our own city department. We try to partner with everybody, Caltrans, the railroad, anybody who touches illegal dumping in our area. And then I just have to champion a little bit for Alameda County, for Nate Miley, Aaron Armstrong, Alameda County, Elise Steinbeck, rock stars, her whole team, because you guys are keeping this work alive. And through you guys and the work that I've learned through you is what helped me build this program here that for the city of Oakland, that hopefully next year I can present the whole program to you guys kind of in more detail about what all we do. But we're finally getting to that point, and I think it's due to these conversations that are being had across the state, and just us, pooling resources together and working together on this. So please ask any questions. I know I get to rambling, you guys, and but we are doing awesome things here. We have about a 10 to 15% payment rate coming back in, which means every single person that we're enforcing, we're teaching a lesson. It's an education opportunity. Every single person that we talk to every day, every property owner, business owner, is a learning opportunity for them. And it's the city of Oakland's responsibility, my responsibility, to ensure we educate them, right? So when they do get enforced, they can't say they didn't know. So I know we got our work set out for us, but I'm excited to continue in this work with everybody here. Please feel free to ask me any questions regarding our program that I failed to mention.
So I think that, I mean, everybody can see that these guys are heroes for a certain, for a reason. Jamaica is housed in Oakland Public Works. Gonzalo is not a Los Angeles, city police officer, but look at the, arrest and citation powers that both he and Jamaica have. And this is the ingenuity discussion that, that definitely needs to be had. Dylan, I want to put you on the spot in the last few minutes that we have and talk a little bit about the difficulty for us as attorneys getting these illegal dumping cases and proving them, right? So,
Sure. Yeah.
And comparing that with, Jamaica's mentioning that the registered owner of a vehicle in Oakland can be held responsible if you can identify that car used in the dumping. Can you tell me some of the issues with proving these cases?
Yeah, so criminal cases, every element needs to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a very, very high standard. Our code officer in Vallejo was great and just a really good guy, and he brought really good cases. And any cases that we filed criminal complaints, I thought they were slam dunks and home runs. When he couldn't get that standard of beyond a reasonable doubt for each one, we would send nasty warning letters and just let him know that we were watching him just for the education and hopefully a deterrent. What was helpful though when you violate or prosecute cases for your municipal code is you can make your municipal code amended so any amount of quantity of illegal dumping is a misdemeanor. So you don't have to worry about the penal code where it's a big cubit yard. So it's a high standard, but even when you can't prosecute it, we would still try to deter by sending those letters out.
So that would be kind of an informal. If I'm looking at the enforcement options on the screen, that's an informal. It's a warning letter. It's a, hey, we found your mail in this large trash dump. While I may not be able to file that case and prove it beyond a reasonable doubt that you were the dumper, hey, something's got to happen here, be it education, be it whatever, to stop what's going on here. Did Gonzalo, what are some of the issues in LA that you see to getting enforcement all the way through the court system?
Thank you for that question, Kibby. One of the things that we need to consider is that's happened recently is some legislation that enacted judicial diversion for all misdemeanors, at least the majority of them. And so we have to work through that. I want to say in 2019, we probably did 70, 80 complaint referrals, misdemeanor complaint referrals, to this year where we probably did, I think it was about 8. And the reason for that is we've had to make a shift on what tool we're using. And a lot of the more egregious stuff still became a misdemeanor, but we started doing a lot more infractions. So basically a fine at the traffic court. So that would be between the officer and the defendant if they tried to fight it. And so far we've been pretty successful. I think there's only been one that's been overturned. And I believe it was because there was a commissioner who wasn't really briefed on illegal dumping or environmental crimes. And as a result, we lost that case. But other than that, we've been pretty successful. You had mentioned video feeds. That's another thing that we had to look at when we're buying cameras. Our city attorney's office, our prosecutors, our neighborhood prosecutors, our environmental justice unit prosecutors, they were very adamant that we have the ability to see the individual, make out height, build. Can you identify the individual in the footage? Another thing to be considerate about is when cameras are not your solve. It's not going to solve every issue at that location. If somebody's dumping and there's no plate, there's nothing on the side of the vehicle, what is there? Is there a lead? You can go and interview the neighborhood, maybe look for more cameras in the area, but really that makes it more difficult for enforcement staff to identify the suspect violator so that we can pursue enforcement. So video is not always the answer. Sometimes, capturing, identifying the individual in the act has its pluses, but you gotta have more tools in that. So a lot more infractions, lots of sites, and as you mentioned, we also have the ability to write an ACE ticket. So when we can't nail down 100% that this person did it, we can then refer it to our administrative citation enforcement team at the city attorney's office for follow-up and administrative enforcement.
Thank you so very much. I see that we are at the end of our time. I can't thank each, there's Erin. I can't thank each and every one of these panelists enough. They're not people that I just met getting ready for this panel. They're people that I have been working with for a number of years, trying to come up with solutions and ingenuity. They're people that I talk about constantly in my county and that I just truly admire, because I think that there is no one-stop shop. There's no one fix on how to improve enforcement, but everybody will agree that it can be improved. And if we can take a little bit from each of these incredible individuals, I see a lot of positive solutions going forward. Erin, it's all yours.
Thank you, Kibby, and thank you to the entire panel. This was so informative, and honestly, I just wanted to let you keep going for another hour, half hour, but we do have a fully packed day. But I know all of you are going to be sticking around in the Q&A section down below, answering questions there, hanging out in the chat with all the different, there's been so much conversation. People are really interested in what you've been saying. So for all the audience members that are with us right now, if you have questions for this group, if you have comments, get those down in that Q&A feature, get them into the chat, and let's get some interaction with these excellent individuals. Thank you all for all of your work, and we really look forward to keeping the conversation going and letting people know how they can continue to engage in this important work. So thank you all, appreciate it. So now we're going to take a brief break. It's been a whirlwind of a morning, and so today's break is brought to you by East Bay Mud. We only have 5 minutes. We've got a packed day, and so grab a drink, grab a snack, use the restroom, do what you need to do, because after this, we're coming back for a marathon, 2 hours, and we will be having a whole host of presentations on enforcement, as well as an excellent panel coming up on franchise agreements and a keynote speaker from our statewide attorney general. But for those of you who are sticking around during the break, we've got a couple polls to see how well you've been paying attention. Our first one is up right now, and it asks, what does NACO stand for? Is it the National Association Community Organization, the National Academic Circle Organization, the National Association of Counties, the National Atmospheric County Organization? Let us know right now in the comments or by interacting with this poll. We'll give it just a few more seconds, but while I'm doing that, I want to remind everybody that this conference is being recorded and will be made available to anyone who registered for the conference in the weeks following the conference. We'll have a full online post-conference webpage where you can rewatch any of the presentations, and you'll be able to download the PowerPoint presentations as well. And so we look forward to providing that to you. Let's go ahead and close the poll. And it looks like with 83% of the vote, the National Associations of Counties wins, which is the correct answer. We tried to throw some trick questions in there with that O. It turns out the O is in counties. So excellent. So thanks for participating in that poll. I know we have one more poll up for you right now. We'll go ahead and get that up on the screen. But while we're doing that, I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow is Earth Day. And we have sent everybody a whole list of Earth Day events that are happening throughout the state. And so you can join any of those and practice what you've learned. Now, our second poll is up on the stage right now, and I see a lot of people answering it. How comfortable are you reporting illegal dumping when you see it? Not comfortable at all, somewhat comfortable, or very comfortable? And we'll let that go for just a minute. And while we do, I just want to remind everybody that we're also available right now on social media using the hashtag IDCon22. I've been on there tweeting some behind the scenes images from our control room. So if you want to see what that setup looks like, you can always head over to Twitter and you can look for the hashtag IDCon22. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. We're broadcasting live on Facebook, so we're all over social. We'd love for you to join the conversation there as well. Let's go ahead and close this poll and see how we're doing. Looks like most people are very comfortable reporting illegal dumping, and that's great, but it's only about 78%. Almost 20% of people are only somewhat comfortable, and 4% are not comfortable at all. So there's definitely a lot of variation here, but of the people who are attending this conference, it seems like a lot of you are very comfortable with reporting illegal dumping. Probably has to do with because I'm just going to toot our own conference horn, but you've been attending 2 days so far of education, eradication, and now enforcement. And hopefully that's something that's helped people be more comfortable in how to address illegal dumping. So we'll go ahead and close that down now. I want to thank everybody and welcome back for those of you who are out grabbing a drink, grabbing a snack, using the restroom, because now we are going to get into our final stretch of the day. I'd like to welcome to the illegal dumping stage our very special guest from Louisville, Kentucky. It's illegal dumping program. As the supervisor says, illegal dumping knows no bounds. This isn't just an Oakland or Los Angeles issue. It's not just a California issue. It's a statewide issue. It's a national issue. And so we're so excited to welcome Louisville to talk about how they're addressing illegal dumping in their jurisdiction. So we have with us today Karen Maynard, Pete Flood, and Whitney Hickman. Karen studied biology and sustainability at Berea College and later completed her master's degree through Miami University's Global Field Program in 2017. Karen's graduate studies inspired her to transfer to the Department of Public Works Solid Waste Management Division in March of 2017. In her role as the public education supervisor of Louisville Metro Solid Waste, she shares her passion for reducing waste with the Louisville Metro community. Now, Pete Flood joined the Louisville Metro Department of Public Works in 2006. He's the executive director of the Louisville Jefferson County Metro Government Waste Management District and Compliance and Enforcement Manager. Welcome, Pete. And then Whitney Hickman joined Louisville's Department of Public Works in 2016 as an administrative specialist. She assisted with Public Works strategic plan and helped maintain the department's data from LouisStat, the Louisville Statistical Program. In September of 2020, Whitney obtained her bachelor's degree, congratulations, in Science of Management. And in 2021, she became the supervisor of the Solid Waste Enforcement Department. Thank you so much all for being here. And I'm going to pass the stage over to you so we can learn about your exciting programs.
Thank you, Aaron, and thank you to Alameda County and the state of California for having us today to speak to what we do here in Louisville, Kentucky for illegal dumping enforcement. I do want to tell you a little bit about Louisville, as I'm sure that we're pretty far away from you guys in California. We were founded in 1778, just after our country was founded. We're a mid-sized city, about 330,000 households. And we do have a complex county government, which really is a little bit of an issue when it comes to waste management. We have a central business district, an urban district, a very large unincorporated area, and 82 home rule cities, which really does complicate things. Some of the things that Louisville is known for, bourbon, Kentucky Derby, which is coming up here in the first Saturday of May, Louisville Slugger Bats, Muhammad Ali, and Kentucky Fried Chicken, and more. One other thing that we may have in common with the state of California is this region, not necessarily Louisville in particular, but this region is prone to earthquakes. And I think that the two largest earthquakes in the continental United States occurred in this region back in the early 1800s. So fortunately, they don't happen very often, but when they do, they're pretty big. A little bit about our collection system and how it relates to illegal dumping. Of course, the complex government system creates this complex collection system. And what that does is it leaves many of the residents confused and frustrated, not knowing what services they have as they move from one spot to the next. And that frustration can lead to illegal dumping. Another issue that we have is because we are very much an older city, many of the alleys, we have a lot of alleys, were created back in the days when garbage was collected in the horse and carriage. And so those alleys can be small. They can have a lot of overgrowth, tree canopy, which makes it an ideal spot for residents to just take their stuff down the alley and put it on a vacant property or someone else's property. And it makes for a really good spot for somebody to get into a secluded little area and get the stuff off of the back of their truck. We do have a small education and enforcement team, as you can see on the screen. We respond to about 6,500 service requests per year through our 311 system. We issue nearly 3,000 warning letters and notices of violations, citations, and we do also impoundments. We like to work closely with our education team because we believe that that is hugely important, especially in a very complicated system such as we have. And we also have an enforcement officer that is assigned with the enforcement team because they'll try, hopefully here and soon with the COVID starting to get a little bit better, to go out and do direct education and enforcement in areas that have high violations. Of course, we said education first due to the complex system. We need to get the word out there about prevention, tips for hiring a hauler when you need one, and probably most importantly is to get them to understand their collection system and the drop-off options that we have in the community. And hopefully we can prevent dumping before it happens. However, we all know illegal dumping knows no bounds, and there is a line that can't be crossed. We utilize the civil option when it comes to enforcement of illegal dumping. That civil ordinance allows our code officers and peace officers to be able to issue citations. It does allow for citizens to send us images and video from home surveillance, which is becoming much more common, and to do witness statements for us and to be able to upload that anonymously for us, and we can use that as some of our enforcement. Of course, any civil enforcement has to have an appeal process, which we do. And anybody can appeal these citations. The civil ordinance does give us the ability to impound vehicles, and we can hold those vehicles for 6 to 12 months. But we can do it for a 72-hour hold at a minimum. The vehicles can be released at that point if the violator pays all the fines and fees, which is typically adds up to about $1,000 all in all, with the fine, the fee, cleanup fees, and the impound fees. And if a violator wants to appeal it, which most of the time they don't because we have them on camera, they can bond out their vehicle while we are getting to the appeal. Our partnership with law enforcement is pretty good, except that we do pretty much all the work. We operate about 85 cameras. We investigate based on images or complaints that we receive. We issue the citations. We go out and we locate the vehicles. And at that point, we request LMPD to come back us up with some assistance. We're not law enforcement officers with arrest powers, nor do we carry guns or things like that. So we need them basically for that. And plus we need them to tow the vehicle for us. We utilize Accurate as our data tool, but we also utilize Real-Time Crime Center, which is controlled by our law enforcement here in town. And they are very good and have many more tools than us to help us locate individuals. Our cameras that we use, like I said, we have about 85 of those cameras. And we use a Reconyx brand. They're battery operated with local storage. They're capable of having a cellular connection, but we disconnected that because it drew too much battery power. They all have a security package. And while they're not impossible to steal, they're difficult to steal. And I think that gives us a little bit of an edge on things. Installation, we have 2 officers that will go out. One officer that normally does their assigned routes will pull off for the day and go out. We use a pull behind trailer and instead of a bucket truck, which has been very beneficial and easy for us to operate. We install on utility poles, trees, and in covert. We try to hide them sometimes when there's not a way for us to mount them. Cameras are better for low traffic. Got to have a good line of sight, and the trigger range is about 100 feet. We've started to work with cameras in groupings, just so that cameras can kind of keep an eye on themselves. So you have 2 cameras that would point towards each other. These are some of the images that we get from our cameras. The cameras are about 8.1 megapixel. I wish they were a little bit better, but they were much better than the previous iteration. As you can see, they do a pretty good job, and we can zoom in a little bit. The cameras are very mobile, which is what we want. We can be in and out in 15 minutes and have our camera installed, and even to maintenance them, we're there even less time than that. So the cameras have been very good for us, and we lots of times we can't get a license plate, and then we kind of turn it over to Karen's education team to help us locate that person. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to Karen Maynard at this point.
Yes, as Pete said, our education team and our enforcement team work together a lot, very closely, and part of that is through the messaging and even sharing some images. So first, I wanted to share, this is just a screenshot of the top of our website. So one way we work together is by maintaining this web page on our website dedicated to illegal dumping, and it includes tips for residents on how to help stop or help prevent illegal dumping, and with tips such as hiring a reputable or licensed waste hauler, and keeping if you live where there's an alley, keeping that clear and lit, and things like that just can help prevent it from happening in the first place. There's often confusion about the difference between large item or bulky waste set out violations versus illegal dumping. So we have a little bit of information about that, and also helping residents understand the proper way to report if they choose to do so on each. So the set out violations go through our Metro 311 system, while we have a special form that goes directly to our enforcement department if you want to report illegal dumping, not just seeing it on the ground, but if you have information, including images or video, you can submit that with it to share that this has happened, especially nowadays with a lot of folks having their own security cameras at home. We've had a lot of people share some like a Ring camera and things like that. So that's really helpful. And we also keep some images on our website of vehicles that we're looking for, because like Pete said, not Every time we have a camera up, it doesn't mean that the dumper, pulled in just the right way. So sometimes we don't see, can't see the license plate, or for some reason can't locate. So we'll have some images out there of ones we're looking for, so they can help us maybe identify. And we also keep some images of ones that we have impounded, because we want to really show that this is a constant work in progress. And the last thing on our webpage is just that during the pandemic at the beginning, we did a lot of online webinars, as a lot of cities did. And we decided to do one educational webinar about illegal dumping. And so that is, the recording is just posted there on the page for anyone to watch and learn. So this next slide has some screenshots from our social media. I do keep that going and work with the enforcement team, not only to post pictures on the website, but to put them out in real time. If we're looking for anyone in particular and we have those images, we can put those out. We'll give a little information about where the location was. I try to make sure that the image is clear on what was dumped, and that they definitely did it, because if you really want to rile people up, post something about illegal dumping, you get all kinds of comments, and we want to make sure that we mitigate any mistrust of local government, and that they can see what we're doing is good, and we're definitely know for sure this happened. And we also will show, or maybe update posts, or show that we have impounded a vehicle. So that middle picture is showing one of our impounds. And people love to see that too. They love to see that something has been done. And so when they're caught, they realize that it's a continual fight that we are working toward. And of course, through these posts, I also give an educational, or take the opportunity to educate anyone reading, and as to how you can dispose of material properly. A lot of residents believe that dumping occurs because of not having free or low cost ways to properly dispose of things. So we do like to share constantly the opportunities that that residents of Louisville have. So we do have a permanent drop-off site, and then we have events. So I'll talk first for a minute about the Waste Reduction Center. And it's a site where anyone can dispose of large loads of material. So if it's a business, they're going to pay, but residents do have an opportunity to drop off up to 3 large household items for free per day if they want to. And of course, if they have a big truckload of yard waste or construction debris, that does cost. But we do like to contrast the difference between having to pay all those fines and the fees that Pete talked about with this low cost, $60 dump fee. So it could be worth it in the long run. We also at this location offer up to 4 tires can be dropped off for free by residents. Electronics can be recycled. We're one of the few places in town that takes TVs still for free. So it's well used. And in 2020, we started a new event that we call pop-up drop-offs. And this is important to us because these events are throughout the county, especially further out into the county, because the Waste Reduction Center is a little bit closer to our downtown area. So we want to give residents an opportunity to dispose of items for free. And by doing these events the way we do them, we try to recover as much material as possible. So we actually have 8 categories of material that can be dropped off, and besides, everything's diverted from the landfill except for the large bulky waste. So last year we had a full of all of our events that we planned in 2021, and we had over 5,000 vehicles attend in total, and we had a 41% diversion rate. So we thought that was pretty good for our first full year. And here's one of our flyers. This was our first event we just had this month, and for 2022. And you can see there the accepted items, the categories that we accept, and then of course the little list of things we don't take. But like I said, we want to recover as much as possible. So we do our best to educate residents to load their vehicles in a way that helps them to offload into these different categories on site. And it's really been beneficial. Residents really take the opportunity to attend these events, and we, along with all the enforcement strategies that we have, we really hope that having all these multiple opportunities to dispose of waste properly will help alleviate dumping in Louisville. Thank you so much for having us, and we'll check the Q&A and answer any questions you all might have.
Well, thank you so much for the whole team here for joining us from Louisville. I know one of the things, actually, Karen, you showed the website that you do, and that was actually one of the things that initially attracted us to your program was the sort of the publicity that you were raising around illegal dumping. I know that's something that we've had a lot of questions about here in California. Can we post these photos online? But I remember some of your posts were like, do you know whose truck this is? That kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Have you, in doing that, been able to get any results from those types of posts, or what's been your experience with that?
Yes, we've had some cases where we get phone calls within the hour of me posting it. So apparently some people were out to get that guy. I don't know, but Pete gets the calls. It's his phone number that gets put on those posts. But yes, it does work. Sometimes we don't get anything, but we've definitely had cases where we get results pretty fast.
Wow, I mean, that's just incredible. So Pete, it's your phone number. What are those calls like when somebody's coming in, they've seen your social media posts? What's your experience with that?
The experience is pretty good. We get people that call that are just really frustrated with the illegal dumping, and we're finding that more and more people are willing to come forth and tell us who's doing these things, but they're all appreciative. Some of them are a little bit less likely to want to give any information about themselves, but we do keep things confidential, obviously, if that's what they so choose. One particular call that we did get was from the guy that was illegal dumping, and he turned himself in. He said, please tell everybody that you caught me, because people are calling me left and right, telling me that you guys are looking for me. So what Karen does by putting this on social media, it spreads like wildfire. And we always want to have something out there for a discussion point, just so people understand that if you're out there doing this, you're likely to get caught on one of our cameras.
I think that's a great message, and it speaks to how enforcement really can have an upstream preventative approach to illegal dumping. So if people know that they could get caught, if they know that their camera might show up on somebody's social media with their car, and all of a sudden their friends are turning them in, that's going to make people think twice about engaging in this type of behavior. So I really appreciated sharing that. I loved just one of the comments from the chat. No boats or hot tubs accepted. Is there a specific story behind that exclusion, or is that just what's going on there?
Well, I think with the boats, we had some issues with the fact that they're licensed and people looking for, I don't know, I haven't been involved in that. Pete, you got anything else to add on that one?
Yeah, and we're checking into it a little bit more, but we always have people wanting to bring boats full of junk. But, as they're a licensed vehicle, there's a thing that, you have to make sure that that vehicle boat that has been registered is taken out of the system correctly. And that has a lot to do with our metal recycling, car recycling program.
Well, I know in Oakland, we've definitely seen a lot of boats being abandoned on the street, and you see them abandoned with, full of garbage. And so it's definitely a big issue, and, amazing that you're seeing that there as well. One last question, I'm going to let you go. What are your social media accounts so that people who are watching today can follow you on social media?
Sure. Well, the Public Works page, Louisville Metro Public Works, I think it's at Lou Pub Works. We have Twitter and Facebook. And I also, just for more, I post the enforcement things usually through that page, but I keep at No Waste Lou, which is KNOW Waste LOU. I keep that for a lot of our education materials. So I have Facebook and Twitter and Instagram on that one. And I also have an agency page on our Nextdoor app.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for such great information and for coming and joining us here in California. Doing a virtual conference, I think, is so great because we can include these voices from all over the country, and we're just so glad to have you here to share your experiences with us, because that's something that we can all learn from. So thank you, Karen. Thank you, Whitney. Thank you, Pete. And we look forward to future collaborations on addressing illegal dumping throughout the country.
Thank you for having us.
I'd now like to welcome our next panelists, who are from CalRecycle, who have a big statewide role in addressing illegal dumping. And for that, we have Rebecca Oliver and Stephanie Becker. Rebecca Oliver graduated in 2019 from the University of Nevada in Reno with a bachelor's degree of science in civil engineering. She started her career with CalRecycle's cleanup programs in August of 2019 and has loved learning more about these amazing programs in the solid waste industry. And Stephanie, who many of you, if you were here yesterday during the cost panel, you recognize Stephanie. She recently transitioned in CalRecycle to the Illegal Dumping Technical Advisory Committee, or IDTAC, who we are just such big fans of. Previously, she managed their farm and ranch solid waste cleanup and abatement grants and supported the tire amnesty and grant cleanups, which is just such important work. So we're so excited to welcome CalRecycle to the second annual statewide conference on illegal dumping. Stephanie, Rebecca, over to you.
Thank you, Erin. I wanted to do a quick plug. Thank you, Erin and Supervisor Miley, for all the work you guys do around illegal dumping and for this conference. And so thank you for giving us the chance to showcase CalRecycle and all the work that we do. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to turn off my camera. You don't even see me. Then I'm going to share my presentation. Rebecca, you do whatever you want to do if you want to stay on camera. Awesome. So good morning. Erin, can you see my slide?
You're good.
Awesome. So today's presentation is about CalRecycle's role in enforcement and illegal dumping resources often born from that. All right, good. The California Environmental Protection Agency, Cal EPA. CalRecycle is a department within this agency. Cal EPA is made up of 6 boards, departments, and offices, BDOs, the California Air Resources Board, CalRecycle, us, which is the Department of Resources, Recycling, and Recovery, the Department of Pesticide Regulation, the Department of Toxic Substance Control, the Office of Environmental Health Hazardous Assessment, and the State Water Resources Control Board. I tried to show through colored shapes and lines the BDOs that have a role in illegal dumping and litter reduction. So you can see in that square, our overall mission is to restore, protect, and enhance the environment to ensure public health, environmental quality, and economic vitality. The overall EPA mission is fulfilled by developing implementing and enforcing environmental laws that regulate air, water and soil quality, pesticide use, and waste recycling and reduction. We are all at the forefront of environmental science, using the most recent research to shape the state's environmental laws. Materials management, solid waste non-hazardous. CalRecycle administers and provides oversight for all of California's state-managed non-hazardous waste handling and recycling programs, and is known mostly for overseeing various material streams like the ones you see here. Some of these programs and material types, such as paint, were mentioned yesterday. Waste material types banned from the trash are referred to as hazardous waste or universal waste and should be handled in conjunction with the Department of Toxic Substance Control, DTSC, and that was one of the departments under Cal EPA that I just shared. CalRecycle's vision is to inspire and challenge Californians to achieve the highest waste reduction, recycling, and reuse goals in the nation, and transition from a disposable to a fully circular economy. Much work is being done to achieve these goals, but enforcement is also necessary. Enforcement of materials management, solid waste. Generally, each jurisdiction has their own local enforcement agency, LEA. For counties or cities without an LEA, CalRecycle is the enforcement agency. So a note here, LEAs are designated by the governing body of a county or city, and upon certification by CalRecycle, are empowered to implement delegated CalRecycle programs and locally designated activities. So thus you'll see here, CalRecycle is responsible for ensuring that state waste management programs are primarily carried out through LEAs. So LEAs are responsible for guaranteeing the proper storage and transportation of solid wastes. LEAs also ensure the correct operation and closure of solid waste facilities in the state. So the screen capture in the middle of the slide is from the Solid Waste Information System database. So the SWIS database includes landfills, transfer stations, composting sites, in-vessel digestion sites, engineered municipal solid waste conversion facilities, transformation facilities, and closed disposal sites. Currently, these facilities are where the otherwise illegally dumped material should have gone, you could say, or where the post-illegal or the post-cleanup illegally dumped material is likely to be going. On the far right is a screenshot of the report illegal dumping map covering the entire state with links of how to report illegal dumping in each jurisdiction. Depending on the jurisdiction, complaints are usually routed to the Code Enforcement Department first. However, this can vary across the state. The Report Illegal Dumping Map is available on the CalRecycle website, Illegal Dumping Resources Toolbox. Grants, local agency and tire enforcement. As mentioned before, each jurisdiction has their own LEA or regional LEA, or in some cases, CalRecycle serves as the EA. CalRecycle offers grants to assist LEAs in solid waste permitting and inspection enforcement, and to provide funding for training. And on the right, you'll see several tire grants. The Tire Enforcement Agency, TEA grants, are offered by CalRecycle to cities, counties, and city and county agencies in California. And this is to investigate illegal tire disposal activities and perform waste tire inspections. And this is to ensure compliance with all applicable laws and regulations, because tires can be dangerous. Funding for this grant is based upon CalRecycle determination and population. Regardless of grant status, CalRecycle is mandated to provide training and provides ongoing support for LEAs and TEAs. Illegal dumping enforcement. As we all know, Types of illegal dumping incidences vary, starting with litter, but are often more significant and include various material types, ranging in toxicity and different violations. Illegal dumping violations are often unique to each jurisdiction and cited by code law enforcement. The California Association of Code Enforcement Officers defines code enforcement as violations of statutes or ordinances regulating public health, safety and welfare, public works, business activities and consumer protection, building standards, land use, or municipal affairs. Code enforcement officers work with LEAs and TEAs on environmental concerns. Should violations become unresolved, law enforcement is needed and usually additional resources. Illegal dumping resources. CalRecycle offers grant and loan programs for cleanup, as well as enforcement, since local government entities, including code enforcement, LEAs, and TEAs have responsibility for ensuring cleanup of illegal solid waste sites or waste tires, as well as the other responsibilities we have already addressed. Cleanup grants and loans. The Farm and Ranch Solid Waste Cleanup and Abatement Grant Program. This program allows cities, counties, resource conservation districts, and federally recognized Native American tribes to seek financial assistance for the cleanup of illegal solid waste sites on farm or ranch property. Local government waste tire cleanup and amnesty event grants. These programs provide funding to local governments for the cost of cleanup, abatement, so maybe cameras, I'm not sure, or other remedial actions related to the disposal of waste tires collected at cleanup projects and amnesty events. The Solid Waste Disposal and Co-Disposal Site Cleanup Program. This program allows CalRecycle to expend funds directly for cleanup, providing loans to responsible parties who demonstrate the ability to repay state funds or provides matching grants to local governments to assist in the remediation of environmental problems at legacy sites. Rebecca will explain more about these opportunities next.
Thank you, Stephanie. So I'm just going to briefly touch on the cleanup program. The cleanup program provides assistance when the responsible party can either not be identified or is unwilling to pay for a timely remediation. And this is in order to protect the health and safety of the public as well as the environment. And we can provide assistance in the form of grants, like Stephanie was mentioning, as well as CalRecycle managed remediation and local enforcement loans. And we currently have 2 grant programs. The first is the Illegal Disposal Site Abatement Grant Program. And this program provides grants up to $500,000 and are available to local governments to clean up illegal disposal sites. And we also have the Legacy Disposal Site Abatement Partial Grant Program. And that provides matching grants up to $750,000, also available to local governments only. And those are to remediate environmental problems caused by legacy sites, old landfills, that type of thing. And then I just wanted to touch briefly on CalRecycle managed remediation. So this is where CalRecycle would actually go in with our contractor and remediate the site ourselves. And that process would kind of look like you would request assistance from CalRecycle cleanup program. We always recommend you consult us early so that we can go out and take a look at the site and see if it matches up with the program. And then we would identify the owner and any resources available, determine availability of funds and options. This is on our side and your side to make sure we have the amount of funds available that we need for the project. And then we would complete a local enforcement action, but this is again specific to the site. So please reach out early so that we can come take a look. We would complete any permitting, implement the project, and then have any cost recovery if appropriate, which would normally be if it's a private property. And that's it from the cleanup program. I'm gonna toss it back to Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. More illegal dumping resources. So in orange CalRecycle's grants are further explained on the CalRecycle website and may be able to fund a portion of education and eradication as well. I saw some stuff in the chat. Some may be able to touch on the cameras. That's what I was getting into as a conversation in the chat. Other opportunities and programs are available with a connection to help curb illegal dumping. So a bunch of grants there. In pink, find local coordinators who provide assistance to jurisdictions. So if you're interested in what types of CalRecycle programs your jurisdiction has, I suggest contacting a local coordinator first, as different local departments may administer different CalRecycle grant programs. In purple, CalRecycle hosts the Illegal Dumping Technical Advisory Committees, or the IDTACs, Illegal Dumping Resources Toolbox, and coordinates the group's effort. More about the IDTAC was presented on day 1 and a bit on day 2 by Chair Larry Sweetser and Vice Chair Doug Coble. Currently, search illegal dumping or IDTAC on the CalRecycle website for more information. And contact information and listservs. If you want to take a screenshot, a lot of information here. I use this slide for specific CalRecycle resources, or feel free to contact one of us directly. I thank you for your attention today and time. Thanks, Erin. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find myself again, but I'll try. How about that?
We'll see if you can find yourself. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie and Rebecca, for that excellent information about CalRecycle. For all of those watching right now, you can see their contact information on the screen right now. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, comments about CalRecycle, but also remember we have the Q&A feature down below. Stephanie, you can stop sharing your screen if you'd like. And I just want to make sure I thank you very much for being a part of the conference and for all of the great work that you do, and congratulations on the move over to the IDTAC. We're very excited to continue our work with you there.
Thank you, Erin.
Thanks. I'd now like to move us into and thank you, Rebecca, as well. I'd now like to move us into our final panel of the second annual statewide conference on illegal dumping. Last but certainly not least, because we are about to learn about franchise agreements, which are such a big, they play such a big role in addressing illegal dumping. And particularly, we're very excited to welcome a diverse group that is going to represent a lot of different perspectives on franchise agreements. So we have a franchise hauler coming up, represented by Brad Sia from WM. We have cities like Oakland represented by Rebecca Parnes. Counties represented by like Los Angeles by Stephen Milewski. And then we also have special districts as well. And we'll learn about that as well. We have Natasha Brown from Ora Loma and Naomi Liu from CV Sands. And here to moderate this group today, we have Doug Coble from the California Product Stewardship Council, who you may remember from yesterday during our legislative session. Now, Doug has been talking trash, as I said yesterday, for over 29 years, and he's currently the executive director of the California Product Stewardship Council. Doug, I'm so excited about this panel. I know you and all these panelists have been working really hard. We have a lot of very exciting content to go in the next 15 minutes. So I'm going to pass it over to you and tune in.
Erin, thank you very much. And I am honored to be the moderator of this really distinguished panel. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my very short, it's not even, I wouldn't even call it a PowerPoint per se, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. I assume you can see that.
Looks good.
Okay. And let me bring up my notes real quick because they just kind of went away when I shifted gears. Okay. So, like Erin mentioned, we have a very distinguished panel with us today from a whole diverse group of folks that can bring a lot of perspective to franchise agreements. So we have Stephen Milewski. Stephen is a senior civil engineer with the County of Los Angeles Public Works. He in its environmental programs division. for residential trash collection in the residential trash collections section. He has over 30 years in environmental protection work for the county. With the past 10 years, he has been intimately involved in writing and overseeing 27 solid waste contracts for the weekly collection of solid waste from customers, the removal of illegally dumped items, and the related education for 1 million residents in the unincorporated communities of the County of Los Angeles. They are the largest unincorporated, they are the largest uncity in California, LA County. Next, we have Natasha Brown, and she's a consultant with nearly 2 decades of solid waste experience. Her passion for waste started in the Army, where she started recycling bottles and cans to raise money for the company's excursions. After the Army, Natasha went on to earn her bachelor's degree in environmental studies with a focus on land use. After college, she spent 7 years at one of the largest hauling companies in the nation. Maybe she'll tell us which one that is, learning everything from collections to franchise agreements to public education. She has developed a waste reduction programs and policies. She's organized waste collection events and worked with schools to help them achieve their waste reduction goals. Natasha is currently working with public agencies in Alameda County on implementing SB 1383. And if for the folks on this webinar or in this conference, if you don't know what 1383 is, it is the statewide organics recycling requirement law that was passed back in, I believe, 2018. It's been now getting implemented. Next, we have Naomi Liu, and she is a zero waste supervisor at the Castro Valley Sanitary District, or CVSAN. And she has been with the district since 2002. As a department head, Naomi is responsible for overseeing CVSAN's zero waste strategic plan and communications plan, franchise agreements, and directing zero waste programs for CVSAN. Naomi has managed franchise agreements since 2005 and has been instrumental in conceptualizing groundbreaking and replicated contracted municipal collection and processing services. She received her bachelor's degree in environmental design from UC Davis and her master's in public administration from Cal State University East Bay. She is a board of director for the Swana Gold Rush chapter and recipient of Waste 360's Under 40 Award. Next, we have Brad Sia, and he joined Waste Management as an inside sales manager at their Phoenix call center in 2011 and was quickly promoted to a senior manager a year later. In 2016, Brad joined NCN as the area sales director and relocated to Reno. So you may have to explain what NCN is. In 2019, Brad was named the PSS area director, which managed in concert with the area sales until 2021. Currently, Brad continues his role as the PSS area director and works with the rest of the NCN leadership to develop new relationships. And then finally, we have Rebecca Parnas, who works for the city of Oakland and is a senior recycling specialist. Rebecca takes a leading role in the administration of the Oakland's franchise agreements with Waste Management of Alameda County and California Waste Solutions for trash, compost, recycle, and bulky waste collection services. Rebecca has worked in the field of solid waste and waste diversion for over 15 years. Before joining Oakland in 2020, Rebecca oversaw the solid waste franchise agreement for the city of Dublin and worked for Waste Management of Alameda County, managing franchise agreements throughout Alameda County. Rebecca lives in Oakland and enjoys spending time with her family and getting out into nature and eating good food. So that is a little picture of our distinguished panelists. I'm going to move my presentation one more and talk about what we're going to cover today. So what these panelists will be talking about is, one, give you a basic idea of what franchise agreements are in case you're not really familiar with the details of franchise agreements and what's important about them. Then we're going to delve into what should be included in franchise agreements to reduce illegal dumping. And then finally, we're going to talk about barriers and challenges. So I'm going to start. So our panelists are going to raise their hands and let me know if they'd like to take a stab at the answer to the question. It's just going to be a very some informal question and answers from our distinguished panelists. So with that, I'm going to start with the first question, which is, what are franchise agreements? And so who would like to go first? Steve. Steve, go ahead and unmute.
2 years of this working remotely, you think I'd get the hang of it. Okay, so before I started working on solid waste franchises, I was only familiar with franchises such as like a fast food franchise. So I was curious for this conference. I looked up to see if there was a difference, and it turns out there really isn't. Webster defined a franchise as an authorization granted by a government or a company to an individual or group, enabling them to carry out a specified commercial activity. So that's more or less what a trash franchise is doing as well. And so franchising is authorized under California's Public Resource Code under 40059. And so I pulled up one of our franchise contracts and I took a look at it, and I'm going to read some language straight from one of our contracts. And it says, in consideration for franchise rights granted under this contract, contractor shall pay county the franchise fee at the time and in the amount and manner established from time to time by county ordinance or resolution by the Board of Supervisors. So there is my explanation of a franchise agreement, if anybody else would like to add on to it.
She said she wanted his.
I would also add, I think franchise agreements are basically cities acting or municipalities acting on behalf of all their residents and businesses to negotiate for solid waste collection services as it relates to this panel. And one of the benefits of that, which I guess we're going to get to, is that then we can ensure that our residents and our businesses have the services that we deem important and that they deem important. And it also minimizes the number of trucks that we have driving down our streets, which is beneficial for municipalities.
Thank you, Rebecca. Brad.
Hi, Doug. Thank you. I think I like to keep it simple. It really spells out what's required of the hauler and what the municipality, district, city is requesting of the hauler in terms of services provided, and then spells out, rate mechanisms and things of that nature that associate with that agreement and the services. So it's really kind of your guidepost, right, for how services are going to be provided in that particular district or municipality.
Absolutely, with a lot of legalese, in my experience of writing franchise agreements. All right, thank you. Any other panelists want to jump in on this one before I move to the next question? Okay, not seeing any. All right, so exclusive versus non-exclusive franchise agreements, which one's better? And why? Okay, Steve.
All right, Doug, thank you. First, I just want to point out that jurisdictions, some of them will have a residential franchise agreement and a commercial agreement, and other they will have like one master agreement for both services. So just to clarify that. For us, one of the big advantages to having an exclusive franchise agreement, that's where you only have one waste hauler providing a service. It really does limit the wear and tear on the streets, and therefore the pollution, the greenhouse gases that are generated from those collection vehicles. That's a huge advantage. But then it also lowers the rates by guaranteeing a number of customers. That's one of the things that if you have an open market system that a waste hauler is really cautious about, is they don't necessarily want to move into an area and provide services if they don't have a certain number of customers. And so the franchise agreement will guarantee those customers. An exclusive franchise agreement will do that. And then also the exclusive again gives a simpler contract administration. That's for me and my team anyway too. We have fewer contracts they have to review and be familiar with. And then the customer service issues are limited to just one waste hauler. If there's an issue with a dumpster out there or something, and we don't have to try to figure out whose it is, it's an exclusive contract. We knew exactly whose it is, and we can call up that waste hauler and try to get the issue resolved. And then quickly on the non-exclusive, because there are some jurisdictions now that have either completely non-exclusive or semi-exclusive, where there's still more than one waste hauler providing the service. And the advantage to that, I would say, is that it allows customers a choice. I know some residents or businesses even want to be able to choose their waste hauler for whatever reason. They like a particular company or they don't like a particular company, so they want to choose. And one of the issues we have with people often is that they don't understand about the competition that happens during the bidding process. So they feel that the franchise system is doesn't encourage the competition, and there's a monopoly essentially, and people don't realize that, well, it's during the bidding process really that you've had the competition. And then also a non-exclusive system does support more waste hauling companies to be in business in an area. That can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on your point of view. And so we also have then in our contracts, we put things, what we call, my favorite words here, exclusions from exclusivity. And that is a reference to, like, there's certain activities that we make non-exclusive, even though our contracts are exclusive. And one of those big things is the collection of legal dumping. And that's kind of a big one for us, because if you had an exclusive contract for illegal dumping, that means the county's crews could not go up and pick up illegal dumping. It would be an exclusive service to the waste hauler that you signed that contract with. So there's my 2 cents on exclusive versus non-exclusive, if anybody would love to add on to that.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else want to add on to that? Naomi.
Thank you, Doug. Thanks, Steve. That was great. One thing I would add to that is it goes both ways. So for the municipality, whether that's a city, county, or special district, it's what are they looking for? So not all municipalities want to be managing more than one contract for a variety of reasons. Also, from the hauler's perspective, it's about location and geography. What are the access points? How far is the hauler's home base, meaning their main office or their yard where their drivers are leaving from? How far is that to the municipality, to the transfer station, to the landfill, et cetera? And so with competition, another factor is location.
Thank you, Naomi. Anyone else want to add in? Rebecca.
Two is that
so the city of Oakland, we actually kind of have a hybrid where we have broken out different franchise agreements. So we have a franchise agreement for trash and compostable material. And the philosophy behind why we grouped those two together was that as material was transferred out of the trash into the compost, it would at least stay within the same hauler so that there wouldn't be a disincentive for the hauler to increase participation in compost collection. And then we have a separate franchise for our residential recycling hauling. And then for our commercial businesses, it's actually open market. So we don't have an exclusive franchise and we have open market competition. And I think that just was a historical hangover from having, before we had this current agreement in 2015, we had open market commercial recycling and open market commercial composting. So I think some of it, like what Naomi and Steve said, is what works logistically for the city. And then I think some of it is also what's politically conducive for your city, because one of our haulers is a local nonprofit that's like a jobs training program. And so it's really wonderful to have that available as a service provider in the city of Oakland, but they would not be appropriate to do 100% of the service. So there are, I think, a lot of variables to consider. And yeah, apologies if you can hear my coworkers in the background.
Yeah, fortunately we can, but I think
I can't tell them to stop talking.
No,
I wish I could
understand.
sometimes.
This is our Zoom world we're in right now. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Doug, and great commentary, I think, by all the districts and cities. I think Rebecca and Naomi both brought it up. It's unique to that particular entity, that city, that district, that county, in terms of who you deal with and what would the advantages and disadvantages would be. And that's what we always kind of talk about is, what's best for that particular municipality or that particular jurisdiction. Being the hauler on the line, exclusivity is always good for us. because it allows us to really plan, right, and forecast and be able to work within that community to ensure that the services provided are what's being asked for. Because I think that's the other thing, is getting clarity around, you know, what that community wants, what their needs are, and then balancing that with, you know, cost and infrastructure needs. So I think, you know, again, advantages and disadvantages, I think it would just depend on, you know, that particular jurisdictions and the needs of that jurisdiction.
Thank you, Brad. And I would, anyone else before I add one real quick comment to that. And what I would add is that with a non-exclusive contract where you got multiple haulers, I don't know how you would incorporate some kind of illegal dumping requirement to clean up, because how do you get various haulers to decide who's going to clean it up? So I think that's part of the argument on this conference, which is about illegal dumping and how you integrate that into a franchise agreement. It would be very difficult to do under a non-exclusive contract. All right, thank you. Okay, moving on into our questions here. Why are franchise agreements important? And we may have covered that a little bit, but I want to open it right back up again. Nobody wants to answer that question. Natasha.
Franchise agreements are important because it sets the expectations for all that are involved. Sets the expectations for the community, the city, the county, special districts, as well as the hauler. Again, if it's not in the agreement, you spend lots and lots of time in meetings trying to decipher the spirit of the agreement. So it's important to have it spelled out. It's important to set the expectations for planning purposes, for education, for partnerships. Again, you know, I like a nice, well spelled out franchise agreement, so we're all on the same page in the same book, because oftentimes if the franchise agreement is not detailed with expectations, say 5 years down the road, something happens, then you don't have it to help you support your initiatives. For instance, a franchise agreement, oftentimes it's a 10-year deal. It's a long haul. And so to go ahead and go back and amend it does take time. It takes staff away from other things. So if you could come to the table initially, spell out your expectations, where in the end we're better for our services and programs. And I think the hauler would also be a better partner if they know what they need to do.
Okay, thank you. Any other panelists? Quick comment here, Naomi.
Thank you. I agree with Natasha regarding how the franchise agreement can provide clarity. And it also allows both the municipality and the hauler to have something to go back to and refer to. You know, when there's the proposal first made, and oftentimes a municipality is looking at more than one, and then there's negotiations, a lot is said and discussed. And that franchise agreement solidifies those discussions and ultimately what the rates are going to be providing, what the expectation is of the service, and both parties have that document to work from. I'll also just add that a franchise agreement is a choice. So public entities may also provide that service on their own. There may be folks on the call today in our conference who they do their own hauling. They provide that public service. It's something our district looked at a while ago, is what would it take if we were, we explored the concept. What would it take if we wanted to not contract and if we wanted to provide those services in-house? And we discussed that informally with some of our counterparts who have been doing it for decades. It's not an easy thing to do. I have great respect for collection and processing and disposal companies for the amount of work that goes into it. So certainly it's no easy task to just pick up and do. It takes a lot of years of experience. And so it is a choice that public entities have.
Thank you, Naomi. Brad.
Great comments by Natasha and Naomi. I'm going to reiterate, it really is your roadmap, right? It's what the definition of the services that are going to be provided and and I'll use the word accountability to the hauler that they have to the district, jurisdiction, or city. It's so important because Natasha mentioned the word intent or spirit of the agreement, and as Naomi was alluding to, there's a lot of discussion in the negotiation, and you want to have that solidified or clarified in the agreement, because again, that's going to be your document moving forward in terms of how you use that as the guidepost for collection services, and specifically as it relates to what additional services will be offered, illegal dumping, bulky, some of those items that are important to the jurisdictions as it relates to eradicating or minimizing illegal dumping. So great comments. Just wanted to add that a little bit, being from the hauler side.
Absolutely. And I will attest to what Naomi said, coming from a county for 18 years of doing completely vertically integrated from collection to transfer to disposal, but then farming out the recycling processing was a really good mix, and then farming out the commercial collection to a non-exclusive. So one thing I was going to also just really quickly add, having the non-exclusive, one benefit to the ratepayers of those is they have extreme competition, and rates can tend to stay a little lower in some cases when you have a lot of competition for that same that bin of trash. So. Okay, and then the last question on this topic was, how are franchise agreements related to illegal dumping? We may have answered this a little bit already. Right. Not seeing a rush to answer that question. And that's okay, because we can move on to the next topic. All right, so let's jump into what can be included in a franchise agreement that will help to reduce illegal dumping. Anyone want to jump in first there?
Yeah, Doug, I'll jump in real quick. It depends, and I think it goes back to what the panelists have been saying, right? What's important to the community as it relates to how they see the hauler's part in that. And I think, as Naomi alluded to during the negotiations, that's usually where we start at, right? Which is, what are the changes, what are the wants and needs of that particular jurisdiction? That's usually where we start, right? What's working well, what needs to change, and how do we incorporate that based on, again, what the citizens in the community want as it relates to what that hauler's input is, or what the hauler will be doing. Whether it relates to illegal dumping pickups or bulky pickups or specialized services at the curb. That's really where you want to start, is provide clarity around that. Because I think once you do that, that kind of formulates everything, like you said, in the rest of the agreement and how that agreement is then eventually takes shape.
Panelists? Steve.
Yeah, I'll add to Brad just mentioned the clarity, and I think his reference was the clarity to the waste hauler, but it's also clarity to the customers. I think it's and this is going to tie into education and outreach for our customers. People won't use a service if they don't know it exists. I think of an example of, we met with a customer one time, and they had been in our area for many, many years. And I went back and I counted, they had received over 20 pieces of outreach material from us over the years, and they weren't aware of some of the services that we were offering that talked about this. And it just blew my mind that obviously that falls on us. We need to come up with new ways to reach our customers. And so we've been putting it into our contracts about the waste haulers having a social media presence, and we're using Nextdoor now. And sometimes we'll include a refrigerator, magnets, postcards, flyers, newsletters, brochures, all this, everything we can do to reach our customers, to let them know about the services. Otherwise, they're never going to use those services.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Steve. I actually had a supervisor actually admit that when she got her utility bill, all the contents that were in there, except for the bill itself, went into the recycling. right away. And so that's telling that, you know, and she was not unique. And so that can happen. So you're right, absolutely, all the different kinds of formats. Anyone else? All right, well, I have a question to expand on this one for the group. So I know with Sacramento County where I worked, since we did the residential collection, we also took on the illegal dumping, and also we offered bulky waste cleanup at the curb, one appointment per year. So for those that have that type of a service where you have a bulky waste cleanup, which helps to avoid some of the illegal dumping because you're allowing your residents to get the stuff gotten rid of for free once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, however much it's offered. How do you separate out as a hauler on a franchise? How do you separate out the bulky waste cleanup from the illegal dumping cleanup if your hauler is doing both? So let's start with Natasha.
So part of the franchise agreements, you'll have your bulky services for your residential customers. And that's usually divided up between your single family and your multifamily properties. A more modern franchise agreement will include multifamily properties for bulky services where, depending on the negotiation of the contract, you could have 1 to 2 bulky collections per year. Some multifamilies have an ongoing efforts throughout the year where a tenant could call the hauler to collect the bulky. And then there's the flip side to it where you have areas in the community that tend to be hotspots. And so the franchise agreement would spell out, we have identified these 5 areas and we would like collection, you know, ongoing, maybe once a week, once a month. Again, it all goes back to the franchise agreement and what was negotiated, because as we say, this is a free service, someone has to pay for it. So it's all negotiated within the franchise agreement. So that cost is spread out. Again, it's a lot harder to amend a contract, the franchise agreement, to add these services. And also it puts a little strain on the ratepayer later on. So it's always best to do that initially to identify like, hey, we would like to include hotspots, even what I call the self-serve vouchers, where you could, as a customer, take the bulky to say the landfill yourself, right? Because maybe you used up your 2 bulkies for the year. So now I need to do an additional run. Especially you have community groups that like to volunteer and clean up the areas. And so they could place all their materials on the corner, and then you have an agreement with your hauler, they would come by and collect it. But again, it's going back to what we've said, the franchise agreement is key to having set expectation, as well as providing these service, especially for illegal dumping.
Thank you, Natasha. Anyone else? Rebecca.
Yeah, so in the city of Oakland, we actually just worked with Waste Management to update our bulky services agreement to test out some new service offerings to help make bulky pickup service as competitive as just dropping your stuff on a corner and moving on. Because we at the city of Oakland do have kind of a robust public works crew that does pick up illegally dumped material that gets reported to the city. And so some of the changes that we've made to our franchise agreement that we're optimistic are going to help make it easier for the customer to use is we've increased the size of the bulky set out. And the thing that I'm most excited about that I think is going to help is that now residents of multifamily properties can directly contact Waste Management to schedule service, whereas before they had to go through their property manager. And as you can imagine, some property managers are great property managers, and some property managers are a lot harder to get in touch with, or maybe you have issues with them about something else, so you want to kind of avoid communication with your property manager. So by making it something they can connect with waste management directly on, we're hoping that broadens access and makes it more equal for all residents of Oakland to schedule service. And we've also included an option like Natasha mentioned, where you can self-haul to the transfer station directly. And we historically, actually, before we updated our agreement, did have a situation where our public works crew would assign a certain number of illegally dumped spots to waste management's kind of equivalent bulky crew. But we found that actually our public works crews were more accustomed to collecting illegally dumped piles of material, which are often, you know, not well prepared, not contained, not categorized, and are a lot kind of just messier when they're out on the curb. And so in Oakland, at least, that's like dividing that out between what customers request and what's just dropped has been, well, so far beneficial. We've only been under this new system for maybe 4 or 5 months. So we're seeing if whether this updated arrangement serves Oakland better and results in cleaner streets, and we're optimistic that it will be. So we'll see.
Check number 1001.
Thank you, Rebecca. Steve, then Naomi.
Doug, one of the changes we've made to our contracts in recent years, since we're talking about bulky items, we've always offered, obviously, a bulky item for something large, but then we also had a program for excess waste. You could have bagged trash picked up, and then also excess green waste. And what was happening is you could potentially call the waste hauler and have them come to your property more than 10 times in a year to pick that stuff up if you did them all individually. And so what we did is we actually offer more bulky items per year than we did before, because it used to be 2. And now we do 4 times per year. You can call for a bulky item. But we consolidated it so that once the waste hauler is there, that's one of his 4 trips per year that he can do at no extra charge anyway. And while he's there, he will pick up your large items. He will pick up your e-waste. He will pick up your excess waste. He will pick up your green waste, or just one of those. It doesn't have to be all of those, but it just, because it's the labor, really, that's the expensive part of the bulky item process. So we tried to limit the number of trips the waste hauler was going to make to the properties.
Thanks, Steve. Naomi.
So we had a new franchise agreement that started in 2019 with Alameda County Industries, ACI. And as part of that franchise, we had the opportunity to start a recognition program, excuse me, for our multifamily communities. And so we call it the Green Neighbor Community Recognition Program. And so multifamily properties are able to apply to get certified, and they complete activities in each of the 4 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot. We do a couple other things. We try to keep it simple enough. And the benefit is that once they're certified by us, they get awards for both the property as well as for the tenants. And so in addition to our once per year bulky pickup for multifamily, our voucher program where they can take items directly to the transfer station if something gets illegally dumped or a tenant leaves behind items. They're also able, as a property, once they're certified, to select an award that includes things like bringing C&D materials, pickup of mattresses, refrigerators, white goods, e-waste, etc. And so this is a way for us to have them apply, participate in some activities, and then get rewarded above and beyond what's already included in their rates. And this is something that we do in partnership with our hauler, ACI. And so that's been an exciting program we just started last year. And the other services, like I said, have been around for a few years. What I'll also add is that we've had a program, an event-based program that's been going for some time. One is long-standing and one was recently started. So we recently started a curbside and event-based textile collection program. And when I say textiles, I mean clothes, shoes, bath towels, curtains, linens, even stuffed animals. No light ups, please. We don't want any fires. We all know about that in vehicles. And that is also extended to both single family and multifamily. And this is for the clothing that has holes in it. We'll accept that as well, plus all the good stuff that other folks can rewear. So that program's been around now for a few years. And then our longer standing program is our twice per year Recycles Day event. And in the spring, we accept items like similar to our friends over at Louisville, what you saw they shared on the screen, very similar types of items we accept: shredding, mattresses, tires, etc., e-waste. And then our summer event, we partner with the Alameda County Household Hazardous Waste Facility. And in Alameda County, there are one-day events that we can work in partnership with the facility and offer to the community. And so folks are able to make an appointment and come on down and bring their items as well. So we offer both opportunities for planned collection as well as unplanned. And I think what hits our communities the hardest is when it's unplanned and something just shows up right on the property line. It's not in the public right away. It's right on the edge of the property, and the property owner, manager, tenant doesn't know what to do with it. And that's why we've built in these additional processes within our franchise.
Great, thanks, Naomi. Anyone else? Steve.
Yeah, we have a relatively new service. I thought it's worth mentioning because it ties directly into prevention of illegal dumping, and that's for providing dumpsters at homeless encampments. And so for almost the past 2 years or so, we've been putting out dumpsters where we have large groups of the unhoused residents for them to use, because as a homeless person, if you want trash service, well, you may not be able to afford it, but you just can't get it. You can't have a trash truck come to your tent and provide services. So we've been putting the dumpsters out, and we work with service providers to educate them, because a lot of times they're going out and offering services, social services to these people anyway. So we give them flyers, let them know, hey, we're putting these dumpsters out, please use them. And it's been very successful. I don't even know what the total tonnage is currently that we've picked up, but we move them around as the homeless people will move around. We'll move the dumpsters to new locations. But what we're finding is that the cost of us putting a dumpster compared to our crews from picking it up, it was about 3 times more expensive to pick it up off the ground than it was to put these dumpsters out. Because what was happening at these homeless encampments is that you couldn't just clean up. You'd have to post it that we're going to do a cleanup. You'd have the sheriff out there, and you'd have our road crews out there with heavy equipment to try to clean it all up. And that was turning out to be about roughly 3 times the cost as if we just put a dumpster out and prevented it from getting on the ground in the first place.
Thank you, Steve. We have about 4 minutes left, and I know that Aaron's going to come on any minute and rush us along. So I want to make sure we get to our last topic, and then we can, if we have more time after that, we can go ahead and open it up for more questions. So let's talk about the barriers and the challenges of incorporating illegal dumping into franchise agreements. Who would like to talk about that one? Brad.
So I'll go first. Yeah, I think Natasha alluded to it, right? The balance of what the community wants, and sometimes there's more wants than what the tolerance level would be for those costs associated with it. And so you're balancing that, and what are the gives and the takes from all of that. And I think it also has to be a partnership, right? So what is the expectation on the hauler? How is the jurisdiction going to supplement what the hauler's efforts are as well too? And I really like what Steve had to say as well too. Sometimes you already have great services within that contract, but how are you getting that message out? And so I think that's another important piece, excuse me, when you're putting that together, is what does the communications plan looks like? What has worked in the past? What needs to be changed in the future? And how do you get that out? Because sometimes, that increasing in participation rate can have an impact as well too.
Thank you, Brad. Steve, real quick, and then we're going to turn it back over to Aaron after a quick closing.
Sure. I would say the language barrier for Southern California, you have so many people from so many different cultures that it's hard for us to give a message out there and have it understood if your predominant language in the household is not English. And hopefully technology will help us ease this into the future as far as scan the QR code and it'll take you to the German speaking or the German language website, and you can read our flyer that way or something along those lines. But really, it's been a challenge for us to go beyond just English and Spanish to reach other households as well. So that's awesome.
Thank you, Steve. So I want to thank our panelists, and I would encourage our panelists to put your contact information into the chat real quick. And so, because we did get quite a few questions that came up, and we won't unfortunately have time to address them now, but if you can stick around and answer questions live that are at least on the Q&A, that would be really helpful. You guys are awesome. I am impressed, and I thank you so much for being part of this panel today. And so we don't want to hold back any longer. We got our Attorney General waiting to talk, and so I'm going to turn it back over to Erin.
Thanks, Doug, and thanks to everyone on this really important panel. Such really great information today. And I just want to encourage anyone in the audience, if you have questions for this panel, put them down in the Q&A feature down below, pop them into the chat, because this group is going to be hanging out there for the next 15 minutes answering your questions. So thank you so much to all of you. I'd now like to welcome back Supervisor Nate Miley, who will introduce our closing keynote speaker and get us ready for the end of the conference and pass us over to you, Supervisor. Over to you.
Thank you, Aaron. Yes, I'm very, very delighted to have Attorney General Rob Bonta speaking to us this morning. It's still morning here in California. So, and we've had an exciting day thus far, and we've had an exciting 3 days. You know, Attorney General Rob Bonta was going to speak with us last year, but it was during the time of his actual selection process that he wasn't able to join us. So I'm really pleased he can join us for the second annual Legal Dumping Conference. Attorney General Rob Bonta was sworn in as the 34th Attorney General of the state of California on April 23rd, 2021. The first person of Filipino descent and the second Asian American to occupy the position. A passion for justice and fairness was instilled in him by his parents, who served on the front lines of some of America's most important social justice movements. It's why he decided to become a lawyer to help right historic wrongs and fight for the people who have been harmed. And I know a lot of us, whether we live in suburban communities, urban communities, or rural communities, are being harmed by illegal dumping. You know, I know the Attorney General before he became the Attorney General. He was in the State Assembly and also working in San Francisco in the District Attorney's office there. So Attorney General Rob Bonta, the floor is yours, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Supervisor Miley, for having me. Thank you for that very kind introduction, and I'm honored to join you and so many leaders across the state. And I'm saddened that I wasn't able to be with you last year, and thrilled that I can be with you today and this year. And the issue we're here to discuss is, as you know, not an Alameda issue. It is not a San Diego issue. It's not a Fresno issue. Illegal dumping is a statewide issue. It's a national issue. It's a global issue. And in too many neighborhoods and too many places, our children have to step over trash on their walk to school. This isn't just unsightly, it's unsafe, it's dangerous, it's bad for our health, our environment, and it is illegal. To address this issue at the California Department of Justice, we stand with our counties, our cities, our special districts, nonprofits, businesses, and residents in advancing the 3 E's: education, eradication, enforcement. I know you've been talking a lot about those over the last 3 days. As the state's chief law enforcement officer, my office has a unique role in advancing that 3rd E, enforcement. And that is exactly what we are doing. We are enforcing our laws governing illegal dumping, including California's hazardous waste control law, one of the strongest laws in the nation governing the disposal of hazardous waste. I approach our enforcement efforts with a deep commitment to environmental justice, a commitment to empowering communities living at the intersection of poverty and pollution, communities that are often hurt worst and hurt first by illegal dumping, frontline communities. You need to look no further than my childhood to learn why I have this commitment. In the 1970s, my parents were recruited to help organize farm workers for better wages and working conditions in California's Central Valley. And it was in those fields, well, where I spent my early childhood watching a community organize for social justice, for workplace justice, for what we now know as environmental justice. Facing grueling working conditions, including exposure to toxic pesticides and chemicals, farm workers stood up and demanded change, demanded justice. Now, decades later in 2022, we must learn from those lessons of the past and demand our own change. Right now, communities continue to be poisoned by toxic air and dirty water. Big oil and big business continue business as usual. This can't continue. And at the California Department of Justice, we're taking action. That's why, since being sworn in as California Attorney General a year ago, this week, I've expanded the Bureau of Environmental Justice in our office. I've worked to undo the Trump administration's most outrageous environmental attacks. I've filed lawsuits to protect the health of our communities, especially those that live, again, at the intersection of poverty and pollution. Today, I'd like to speak about some of these fights, especially those involving the enforcement of our environmental and hazardous waste laws. Look no further than the lawsuit we filed alongside 12 district attorneys at the California Department of and the California Department of Toxic Substances Control against Walmart for breaking the law by illegally disposing of hazardous waste on a grand scale. For more than half a decade, we allege Walmart, the largest company in the world by revenue, illegally dumped hazardous waste into local landfills, including items like pesticides, aerosol cans, toxic cleaning supplies, batteries, electronic waste, latex paints, and LED light bulbs. We're not talking about a few batteries and a can of insect killer here either. The company's own audits found that Walmart is illegally disposing of hazardous waste in California at a rate of more than 1 million items each year, more than 1 million items. Dumped improperly, these products may seep into our community's drinking water as toxic pollutants or into the air we all breathe as dangerous gases. No corporation and no person is too big to follow the law. As you fight offenders at the local level, our lawsuit should serve as a warning to the state's worst offenders. We will hold you accountable. Over the years, the Department of Justice has taken action against household names, Dish Network, Target, AutoZone, Home Depot, DirecTV, Comcast, AT&T, U-Haul, and more. We will not hesitate to take action when our hazardous waste laws are violated. We are all about enforcement at the California Department of Justice. And as we engage here, we do so with the spirit of collaboration, partnership, working together. The impacts of dumping know no limits, with emissions and toxins impacting us all. This work at its very essence requires us to work together across jurisdictions, across sectors, at all levels to do our part. As we celebrate Earth Day tomorrow, I hope you take the lessons and new relationships that you've gained from this conference as you engage in this critical work. And do so, please, knowing that the California DOJ stands with you. We will continue to take on polluters who violate our laws and harm our health, because protecting public health and fighting for clean air, water, and communities is a top priority. Our health and our planet are what matters most. And just as I witnessed during my childhood when the farm workers movement made a difference in California's fields, I'm certain that if we continue to take action, if we continue to advance the 3 E's, we can make a bold difference, a significant difference, a transformational difference here too. So thank you for the critical efforts you lead to make our communities cleaner, healthier, and safer. I wish you continued success, and thank you for the opportunity to join you today.
Thank you, Attorney General. So if you have a few moments, I'm just going to kind of talk with you a bit. So just for your information, we had over 800 folks registered for the conference, a 3-day conference. We had about 650 attendees on the first day, the education day, and about nearly 500 attendees on the eradication day. I'm not sure of the count for today, but we've had folks attending from all over the country and the world, folks from Canada, the UK, Guam, Israel, which I find phenomenal. I mean, this is a statewide conference. We had folks attending internationally. Then we had folks coming from other states like Kentucky, Texas, Washington, Oregon, Des Moines. Iowa, Arkansas. I mean, that's incredible. But then in your own backyard of California, Oakland, San Diego, Stockton, LA, Palo Alto, Fresno, Contra Costa County, East Palo Alto, Woodland, Pleasanton, Sacramento, Elk Grove, North Monterey County, San Luis Obispo, and San Joaquin County. So clearly, the issues of illegal dumping, as you've pointed out, have no limit. I mean, people are just very concerned about this and really want to see accountability for those who are, bringing down the quality of life for all of us. So your words are so inspirational, and your leadership is very key to having us get a better handle on this daunting problem. And when we talked with the sheriff, Alameda County Sheriff Greg Ahern, on the first day as our closing speaker, and then once again today we had remarks from Mary Jo Maguire, who's the vice chair of the National Association of Counties. They both emphasized how enforcement is also preventive, and enforcement is also a way of educating as well. What do you think about that notion, using enforcement as a prevention tool, a deterrent?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very possible and often very true. Generally, when it comes to illegal conduct, crimes, the thing that deters people from committing a crime most is the belief that they will get caught if they commit it. So accountability, arresting folks, enforcement is very important. And that can send a message out. It's more than just a specific incident that leads to the arrest. It can send a message out through a community about what is acceptable and what is not, about practices that people may have thought there were no consequences for, but do have consequences in it. And it definitely can serve as a deterrent. If folks are allowed to illegally dump time and time again with no consequences, with no accountability, without enforcement, then the behavior continues.
And one other quick question before we let you go. We've experienced the fact that in many communities, people just really feel hopeless because of the proliferation of illegal dumping. So do you prescribe to the theory that illegal dumping is similar to the broken window theory, that if you allow it to proliferate, nothing good can come from illegal dumping?
I definitely think nothing good can come from illegal dumping. And I also am, frankly, I'm very offended by it. What is implicitly being said or explicitly being said when someone from one community dumps into a certain community, to me, it's an expression of disrespect to that community, and it's offensive to me. And it's harmful to vulnerable communities that deserve much better, much more dignity, respect, treatment. And so it's wrong. And it is important to nip it in the bud early, to enforce, to show the respect and dignity that we have and the regard that we have towards the communities that are suffering from it. They don't deserve it. They deserve better. They deserve to be protected and defended from it. And I think that, yes, illegal dumping can beget more illegal dumping, and it creates a cycle that can be very painful and very damaging.
So thank you, Attorney General Rob Bonta. Anything that I can do, we can do, we are here with you. Please help us with any leadership you can provide out of your office so that we can make more progress on this problem that really doesn't have to exist.
If I may, just Supervisor Miley, I certainly want to say thank you for your leadership over many years on this issue. This is something that you have grabbed a hold of, been a leader of, locally, statewide, nationally, now globally. And I think it's incredible that it's sad and tragic in part that so many folks are dealing with this issue all over the world, but also provides an opportunity for bringing forward some of the best practices in response, the best solutions. I'd love to get a readout from you and your team about what you learned would be the best approaches. I always feel that there's not necessarily that many new ideas. If any, there's just ideas that haven't been used in certain places yet. And if there's great ideas being used in other parts of the country or other parts of the world, and we should be benefiting from them, let's use them. And I'd love to help scale them and implement them and work with you. So appreciate your partnership and your friendship, Supervisor, and love to continue to work with you on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, there you go, folks. You've heard from the Attorney General of the state of California. So let's see if we can get him some feedback on what's come out of our conference over the last 3 days around education, eradication, and enforcement, and see if we can continue to build our team and build our effort at trying to address this problem that, as I said, doesn't really have to exist, but it exists because some human beings are disrespectful of others of us, and we do know that people are not perfect and folks will make mistakes, but without accountability, then there's no consequences for bad behavior. All it does is just allow for more bad behavior. So it's been an exciting conference over the last 3 days. I think today's Enforcement Day was really comprehensive. Hearing from the panel, the enforcement panel, that was just really great. Hearing from the different speakers from Louisville on their efforts, I mean, that was really good. Hearing from Calorie, and then hearing from the panel dealing with the practices for franchise agreements. All of this helps us. All of this helps us. And I think there's been a lot of ideas generated and a lot of approaches that we can pick up upon as we pursue our efforts at addressing illegal dumping. I want to thank once again all of our sponsors for the second annual Illegal Dumping Conference. WM was our title sponsor, Waste Management. We really thank them for sponsoring the conference this year. And we definitely want to continue to have our collaboration with WM. We also want to thank our education level sponsors, Mattress Recycling Council, who's been working with us since our inception, and then also East Bay MUD as well, East Bay Municipal Utilities District. We really want to thank our eradication level sponsor, the Oro Loma Sanitary District. I know they've been very much involved with the work that I've been doing out in part of my unincorporated area, and we appreciate the work of Oro Loma Sanitary District in being one of our sponsors at the eradication level. And then at the enforcement level, Tom Silva through Georgia Lane Townhomes and Pepper Tree Village Apartments. They've been involved with our efforts around addressing illegal dumping as well over the years. I'm very concerned about it. Then our community level sponsors, once again, the Public Works Department for Jefferson County in Louisville, Kentucky, just very, very appreciative of what they added and the sponsorship and the information they provided. And then the Illegal Dumping Technical Advisory Committee, IDTAC, been working with them. Our collaboration with IDTAC is just insurmountable, and it's very important. Forrester, working with Forrester and their sponsorship. And then at additional sponsors at the community level, the California Product Stewardship Council, who we've continued to work with. You heard from Doug any number of times throughout the course of the conference. Furniture Cycle and the work that they're doing locally. The National Stewardship Action Council, Heidi and her efforts, and with the California Product Stewardship Council working on extended producer responsibility. Just really, really thankful to have them continuing to work with us and to be at the forefront of efforts at producer responsibility. Paint Care, that was as a community sponsor, and their presentation was very informative as well. The Castro Valley Sanitary District and the work that they do out in my area of the unincorporated area of Alameda County, and their remarks today as part of the franchise agreement. Very, very helpful. And then Product Stewardship Institute. I know we've heard from them on extended producer responsibility, and we really value their input and efforts because, as we keep pointing out, it's teamwork. You know, TEAM, together everyone achieves more. We all need to continue to collaborate on all of this effort. Now, what's next? What's next? Okay. Well, first of all, stick around. Join us for the post-conference breakout for additional discussion and networking. The link is in your conference packet. Stay connected. Join the Illegal Dumping Task Force, our statewide illegal dumping task force. Join the Illegal Dumping Technical Advisory Committee, their listserv. Get involved in both or choose, but get involved. The information, once again, will be sent to all attendees via email. Follow up. Attendees will receive access to the recordings of the conference. Copies of all presentation materials will be made available, and a post-conference survey as well, because we'd like to get people's feedback in terms of how you felt the conference went. Get involved. Earth Day is tomorrow, has been pointed out by the Attorney General and others. Earth Day is tomorrow. We encourage all attendees to get involved with local cleanup and beautification efforts in their areas. We've emailed all attendees a list of cleanups throughout the state. It's time to practice what we have learned. The 2023 conference will probably be the week of April 16th. And as I said in my remarks earlier, either yesterday or the day before, hopefully we'll be able to have an in-person conference with a virtual ability so that we can do a hybrid. It'll be both in-person and virtual for people to participate. Because we want to continue the conference, and because I think as long as illegal dumping continues to be a major grassroots issue that affects us all, whether we're in suburban communities, urban communities, or rural communities, we are impacted by illegal dumping that doesn't need to take place. We need to continue to try to work together and spotlight and highlight efforts at trying to reduce this problem. The breakout link is in the chat, so go to the chat for the breakout link. I want to thank Aaron Armstrong, Jasmine Howard, Austin Bruckner, Ashley Strasberg, Tony Henninger, the Information Technology Department staff, and the Illegal Dumping Task Force participants, everyone who helped to organize this three-day conference has been very beneficial. But as I said, let's all stay together. Let's continue to work on this both locally in your area and work collaboratively across the state as well, across the country as well. And those that attended internationally, let's see how we can be supportive of your efforts as well. So once again, everyone, thank you and take care. Have a good rest of the day. And remember, Earth Day tomorrow.